right now leading the points in the thick of the points chase, and you're just down to roll through too. I think that's like a good sign of just like a dude in a good headspace.
I'm always pretty chill, but yeah, I mean, like you said, I think you could put a lot of pressure on yourself and overthink and do all that, but to me, it's the best position to have that red plate. I respect that and I appreciate it, but with all due respect, like, I don't want to be on Star.
I don't want to wear Metal Militia.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Charlotte. Where does that rank on your all-time kind of wins, especially like being in North Carolina as well?
Number one. Did I still have dreams of it? It's like a wet dream.
Look at the charge down the inside of Jeffrey Herlings. Cooper Webb round the outside. Cooper Webb will lean on Jeffrey Herlings. He takes the lead. The crowd erupt. They go wild here for Cooper Webb.
I decided from that day forward, if I ever got my shit together, would never beat me again, ever.
Before we get into this podcast with Cooper Webb, I want to bring you a message from today's podcast sponsor, Athletic Greens. Girls at Athletic Greens, we're excited to have you on board. All right, we'll just get rolling, Mr. Cooper Webb. I'm pretty excited for this edition of Gypsy Tales, mate. Not every day you get the 450 points leader just rolling through the studio. So welcome, mate. Been looking forward to this one.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I know we've talked about it for a while, so it's good to get in and make it happen.
It's cool too that you're right now leading the points in the thick of the points chase, and you're just down to roll through too. I think that says a lot about, I guess, like the position that you're in. So and yeah, I think that's like a good sign of just like a dude in a good headspace too. I don't know if I'm reading into it too much, but that it comes across like that, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always pretty chill, but yeah, I mean, like you said, I think it's a position that you could put a lot of pressure on yourself and want to, you know, overthink and do all that, but to me, it's the best position to have that red plate. So it's the most chill spot you can be in. So it works out pretty well. But yeah, man, we're in California here for the little break and doing some testing. So glad I could bring it in for the studio time.
Yeah, no, well, I appreciate it, man. It's not like it's a position that you haven't been in before as well, right? 2-time champ, like you have been here. It's not like this is your first dance too. Yeah,
not popping cherries, but yeah, you know, like you said, I have been in here twice before, and you know, even in 2020 was closing to the championship until whatever round it was where I front flipped, but yeah, you know, I think as you get older and more mature and put in these situations more and more, you get even more comfortable, and it definitely never gets easier, but mentality-wise, you learn to embrace it, and like I said, for me, I really actually enjoy these situations, and being in the thick of it, that's what brings me back racing, you know, and everyone's a little different, but like I said, I think for me, it's actually the preferred spot is up at the top and in the mix.
What is it about being, I mean, I guess it definitely makes sense, but there's some people would probably like to be the hunter by just like a couple points maybe, you know, like if I could imagine being a dude, let's say you're like 2 points back, and then you're like, all right, the guy in front, it's like his to lose, not necessarily like mine to win. I feel like that would probably be like more of the, at least for me as a dude that's pretty shit at racing, you know what I mean? But like I could see a situation where being the points leader would give you more anxiety instead of less. Like I feel like there could be a buffer just below, like, but to you, it's just you want to be in that top spot. Like, have you ever thought about the psychology of that and why you prefer it?
Yeah, I have a little bit. I mean, honestly, I think 21 was the season that taught me more about being ahead than behind. Like 2019, I was, like you said, we were all in the hunt really early, within a few points, and you're in a good spot. But 2021, at one point, I think I was 18 or 20 back at one spot, and you're kind of instantly you're shooting yourself in the foot a little bit, and knowing like, hey, yes, I can achieve this championship or this red plate, but I have to play catch up, and then I'm relying on someone else's really mistakes in a sense. So that's kind of my mentality. As I agree, like in maybe a perfect scenario, you could be a few points behind, but I think it's how you apply it. You know, obviously with the red plate, you do have pressure, and you maybe have the media or the eyes or that little bit more pressure on you, but you're not playing from behind, right? You're always, obviously right now it's pretty much winner take all because we're tied, but 9 times out of 10 when you have the red plate, you're in the driver's seat. So, you know, you can afford to have those maybe second or third place nights where it most of the time puts a lot of, in my opinion, more pressure on the guy behind you to actually step up and have to not only beat you, but then put points on you as well. So, you know, it's whatever way you look at it, and I think that's why we're all maybe wired differently, right?
Yeah. Well, it's funny with you too. I feel like you're one of the guys that has just experienced like the full gamut of, like you said, the media eyes and the pressure and the team situation. Like, you've been fully out of the picture completely and had like these years where you weren't in the hunt at all, and then you've had the years where you were the man, and then you've had the years where you were like scrounging from behind to come back to win. Like, I feel like of all the guys on the gate, and I mean Eli's won a lot too, but I feel like he's done it in a different kind of way, you know, like it was never out of the hunt in a sense. So when you look at the experience that you've got in these championship situations, like, you're a super well-rounded dude. And to think now, like, going for a third 450 Supercross championship, like, that's a lot of races that you've had to be in the hunt and, you know, in with a chance to get into that position. To, like, there's not that many guys that have won 3 450 titles.
No, absolutely. And like you said, just being in that hunt and in that category is already a great feeling. You know, I think even after my second one, it was kind of like when you look back and look at guys that have done it twice, once again, there's not many there. So like I said, it's all perspective, and going back, like you said, I've kind of been all over in seasons. I've been had seasons where I felt like 2019, it almost came very natural where things went my way a lot, and I didn't know any better in a sense, right? To where I think, like you said, with Eli, he kind of won from the beginning of when he got into the 450 and has always had that maybe expectation a little bit. So, like I said, my especially second year, I really, you know, didn't do too well on the 450 class. So the perspective of, like, I remember battling my balls off just for top 10, you know? So it's changed a lot, and I've grown as a racer and kind of gotten back to my 250 ways, or the championship ways and the championship mindset, where I always feel like I'm at my best. And you know, every year is totally different, but like you said, to be in that conversation of a potential third is definitely amazing. And like you said, you have to put yourself in that situation, but also have done it and been there, and experience comes into play at this stage, especially when you're going against a guy like Eli who's also done it twice.
Yeah, it's such a sick championship from the outside perspective. I mean, I feel like you probably wish there was less dudes that are as good as what they are right now. But like, what a fucking mental season this year has been. Probably one of my favorite Supercross seasons ever. Like, you think about the guys that we have at the top of the sport, and the different guys that have chances of like winning races. It's just, it must be a fucking nightmare for you to deal with. But like, dude, it's been unbelievable to watch from the outside.
Yeah, it has. You know, I think perspective, you know, when you put it into perspective, it really has been an amazing season from a fan standpoint. You know, there's always plenty of guys that can go out and win, but I feel like this year is even higher, you know, and we've seen the level of competition rise every weekend. There's potential of a new winner, and I think to have 3 championship guys, and to this point, this late into the season, is probably one of the first times it's happened, you know, since probably the Chad, Stu, and Ricky days, you know. So, and I think just championship contender-wise, me, Chase, and Eli have 3 completely kind of different styles and attitudes and the way we go about things. But like you said, you got guys that that have won plenty of races and also won championships that are in the mix every weekend too. So the level's high, and I think about that too, like in 21 or 19 and all these years, like the way I'm riding right now, I would have probably won twice the amount of races back then, but that's the sport. It evolves, and I think, at the end of the year, no matter how it turns out, I can hang my head high that I race literally the best guys in the world at maybe, one of the pinnacle times in our sport.
Dude, 100%. That's facts right there. Like, whoever wins this championship this year is a legitimate G in the overall, like, global Supercross picture, because I just don't think that there's been as many guys, and it's not even the guys that just win, right? So, like, I mean, how many winners have we had? Has it been like maybe 4?
It's 4,
4.
AP
so it's
was close.
Dude, I know. But so it's like, it's not that many winners, right? When you break it down into who's actually won the races. But when you think of it from a championship perspective, when you've got so many guys that are so good, like a bad night is an 8th or a 9th right now. And that's never really happened. Like, you could see like a Chad Ricky era, a bad night is a 3rd. And like a 4th would be crazy to get. Like, you'd have to really make some mistakes to be in that Chad, James, Ricky category and get a 4th in a Supercross race. Whereas nowadays, like, Eli has got, I think he's got like an 8th and he's had like a couple bad ones where it wasn't like there was no huge mistakes. Like, he just couldn't make up those positions. So I think that, when you look at it from like that perspective too, of just like how many dudes can get in between you and the guy that you're battling in the championship with, that makes this championship super gnarly as well.
Yeah, that's where, like you said, I think when you put it into that kind of category, that's where it really does get gnarly. Like, I think starting to look at statistics more just because they're more available, and I think like I was looking yesterday, and me, Chase, and Eli have now shared the podium 7 times, which is pretty crazy, to do, and this is really the first season that's happened. But like you're saying, if you were to fall in the first turn, or you do have a tip over, or say you legitimately get a bad start, it's not a guaranteed podium. It's not even a guaranteed top 5 anymore, and I think that's the level that we know that is in Supercross now. And the top 10 is 250 champions or podium guys, and I mean it really is tough. So I think like we keep saying, that's what's made this year very special. Not only how many different winners there could be or how many guys are in the championship run, but just when you go down the line and look at the list of talent, and like you said, I think maybe even for me in other years, I could have a really bad start or even a tip over, and I knew no matter what, hey, I'm going to be on the podium or at least a top 5, and it's definitely not like that anymore. I mean, you're less than even 90% now, and you're not even guaranteed a top 5. So that's what makes it really tough, but also I think what is pretty rewarding when you do get a win or you do put yourself in this position, like, man, I'm really, really in a good spot.
Dude, like, even winning a heat race, it's so gnarly. Like, it took how many rounds for you to get a heat race this year? Like, that shit's no joke. Like, that's becoming actually a gnarly thing to be a guy that can win a heat race.
Yeah, it's for me, the heats are even harder, dude, because honestly, anyone in our class right now, 1 to 12, can lay it down for 8 to 10 laps, and go for that heat race bonus, right? So they're like, once again, like you said, it's not one even now where you can just be off or have a bad start in that and be like, oh, all right, I'll take a 3rd in the heat and get a 5th place gate pick. It's like, dude, I've straight up gotten a couple like 5ths where I'm like, damn it, dude, I'm going to the line 10th or 11th, and I was trying and just didn't execute. So it's a lot to it now, qualifying, the heats, it's all basically adding up to what your main event could or couldn't be, and it's definitely becoming more important, and like you said, the level is just getting higher. So it's Supercross at a whole nother level, I'd say, right now.
the one thing that struck me when I moved to the States was that it kind of didn't matter how fast you were at times, because you needed to get a heater in qualifying. Like, you had to pick your way through traffic. You had to make sure that you got a good lap time, because if you didn't, then you were going to get a shit gate pick for the heat race. And then if you got a shit gate pick for the heat, you're going to get a shit pick for the main. So I didn't have the perspective as a fan before I actually was there through the entire day's racing program, just how critical it was. And this was back in 2012. I actually don't think that or maybe they do, but it's like the average or more casual fan has a real perspective on just how gnarly you have to be from 10 a.m. on a Saturday to 10 p.m. It's like this 12-hour shift of you having to be completely on your A game, because there is such a follow-on effect that almost every single session has on your, like, that main event result. Yeah,
it does, and that's what I think. Like I said, for a fan coming from other motorsports or in general, whatever it is, like most other, like when I think MotoGP or even F1 or something like that, you have free practice where you're literally going, testing the car, the bike, seeing the track conditions. Like, you have 2 or 3 practices that literally mean nothing.
Don't matter.
To where for us, we come to a track that we have maybe looked at a track map or whatever. We walk it. We have to figure out the fastest lines, jump all the jumps within a 10-minute window. And, hey, the next practice, this could determine your gate pick for the heat race for the night. So, like I said, I think when you put that perspective on it, it is pretty crazy how fast we adapt and how many moving parts there are that could dictate your night. And like you said, you have maybe a crash in practice, and then all of a sudden that one's out the window, and hey, now you have to perform in this last and final practice. And it's definitely gnarly, and I think that's one of the cooler things about ours is, pole isn't as important. Like you said, you can be a top 5 in practice or top 3 to 4 in the heat, and still, even though it's not helping your chances for the night, you're still at least in the conversation, to where, like you said, there's so much emphasis on pole and all these other motorsports. So, but the differences are insane. We have that basically one day. We have when you break down how much we actually ride, you basically have a 30-minute window that can dictate your whole entire night, opposed to a 2 or 3 day event.
Dude, the desert track out here took me maybe like 6 rides just to remember where it went. It's like, that's 6 times rocking up to the track, trying to remember the way that the track goes, and you guys are doing it in like 10 minutes.
Yeah, and the best is when it's weather, and then you have, we were talking about it the other day at Seattle. The one year we had one practice. It was a 1 10-minute practice for free practice, for gate pick, for everything, and it is pretty wild. And then when you put it into perspective, like, it's I enjoy that part. Is like, I find a lot of enjoyment in learning the track as quick as you can. I feel like that's one of the things I excel at, so I don't mind it. But it's like I said, when you look back and actually think of it and put it into perspective, it's like, wow, we had to just learn a track in basically 30 minutes. We race it, and we'll never ride that same layout or same track ever again. It's over and done with, and Dirtworks is already on the floor scraping it up while we're finishing our press conference. It's pretty wild.
Dude, it actually is mental when you really stop and think about it. And when you sit in the floor for the practice sessions as a fan, and you just see, I mean, granted, you guys get like the press day, which it's a little bit, but it's just the same thing. Like, whether you do press day or not, like 3-4 minutes into a session, everyone is doing everything. Yeah. That is psycho, dude.
Yeah. I think the one thing that does help us a lot nowadays is we have access to so much video and footage, and that's where, even for me, like you said, on the press days, typically we get 2 or 3 sections, but I'll already know the rhythms before I even show up, whether it's from Instagram or, what our teams filmed or whatever it is. And So I do think it is nowadays with that access, it really does help. And, all of our obstacles genuinely are the same size. So you kind of know, hey, this is a triple or this is going to be a quad or double, whatever that may be. But it is still mind-blowing when you think about it. Like I can watch a video for 10 seconds and jump a jump the first lap I'm on that track just off of that, just once again, experience. It's pretty wild.
Dude, that's actually sick that you guys can do that. It's just like there's just like some game engine that you guys have in your brain where it's like you just can see the thing, and then when you get there, there's like a level of trust in yourself and a level of muscle memory to just know, like, okay, this is second gear off the seat. Well, you give it exactly this much throttle and you're going exactly this far. That shit is crazy to me.
Yeah, it's like walking for us, right? I mean, I started when I was 4, so I think, like you said, you just gain so much experience. You're so tuned in. You're so just focused and not anxious, but like you're just ready to perform on a Saturday, at least for me. So, like, hey, all right, this is going to be this way. And I mean, I've even gotten to the point where I can walk a track and I know what line is going to deteriorate, probably which lap of the main event, or what's going to be the secondary line if you do mess up. Like, that's how focused and in tune and how gnarly our sport has gotten to it, and that it is pretty wild.
Dude, speaking on the like how pole doesn't matter too, shout out to Moranz for getting that whole shot on the weekend, bro. There's honestly nothing sicker than a privateer whole shot in a 450 main event. Dude, it didn't work out as well.
Outside gate, stock bike, just riffing it.
How good is that? That is like sometimes you see like those memes on Instagram and it's like faith in humanity restored. It's almost like that vibe.
Yeah, and I'll give him credit. Like we talk about all the time about how, to me, starts your confidence, right? And keys. So
yes, dude.
The fact that he was like, hey, I'm going to hole shot and I may get 20th tonight, but I'm putting her up front for as long as I can, and it was impressive.
Dude, I used to say that to people all the time. Like, and this was what blew me away about Michael Essie. It's like there's a difference between knowing and thinking.
Doing, yeah.
Like, I think I could get a whole shot. It's like, okay. But then there's a massive difference between knowing that you will get the whole shot. And guaranteed every single time Michael Essie got a whole shot, he knew before the gate dropped that he was getting that whole shot. And it's like a obscure reference, but we had this kid that raced local races with us. And then he was like a poor kid, right? Stock, the first like 2003 YZF 250 that came out, like thing was fucking roach to shit, and he would hole shot every single club day, every single state round, and then he would go to the nationals that were in our state and would fucking hole shot every single pro national that this kid went to. Like, he was just clockwork. He would not shut off. Like, it didn't matter what gate he was, what position he was in. He would not shut off until he came around the first turn first. And, like, that's just a straight psychotic confidence that he must have had in himself. But you can't fake that, dude. No.
That are just, like I said, I think starts are 80%, mental and, like I said, confidence and routine and just knowing exactly what RPM, clutch release, like just being comfortable. But like you said, 20 of it is a little bit luck, right? I think so. That's quite impressive. He's the Oz Michael Essie, though. Like you said, it's no matter what the position's going to be, the goal was get that whole shot no matter what, and definitely put yourself in the best possible position when you do that.
Yeah, so there would be like times where, I'd race and practice starts or whatever, but I didn't even want to get the start because I knew that I was too slow, that if I got the whole shot, like it would not be good for me. Like, I'd barely be able to finish the race. So, like, to, the point with Moranz, it's like, bro, shout out to you for having the nuts to even whole shot one of those things with a pack of absolute killers that are just ready to put you into the seats to get you out of the way. Like, with respect to him, none of you guys are having any respect for Moranz on the first lap of a Supercross, Ryan Moranz for the first lap of a Supercross race.
Yeah, no, it's kill or be killed, right? So, but to your point, I mean, I've been there, and shoot, you'd be surprised. There's definitely guys out there now where, like you said, the same mentality. Hey, I'm gonna start in this position because maybe I'm gonna finish in this position, and that's just what I'm gonna do. So it is a funny mind game that some people are a part of, and some are like, no, I'm just gonna stick to the routine, man. Stick to the routine.
That's awesome. So we've talked about how high the level is in 2023. What do you think? Obviously, you've been in the 450s for a long time. You've been in the sport for a long time. Why is it just elevating and elevating? Like, what are the things that we don't see as fans that are adding up to this ridiculous level of Supercross?
My personal opinion on it is, I think you got to look back at, every generation and pull from maybe every decade of, I think, at least from my time, like when I look at Ricky, he was incredibly fast, incredibly consistent, but I feel like he brought the fitness into the sport. He brought the gnarly work ethic, and just you had to dedicate your life to it. And then I look at James Stewart, and he was the one that brought just sheer speed and skill and doing incredible things on a dirt bike. And then I feel like RV kind of brought the mix of that. Like, hey, you had to have fitness. You also had to have pure speed, but then now you have to be really consistent. And I think Dunge took that to a next level later when RV retired. So when I look at all those guys and all the different things they brought, and I look at us now, we're all extremely fit. We're all extremely fast and have, some guys might have a little more skill than the other, but we're within, in my opinion, 5% speed-wise, and we're all consistent to an extent, like that's bred into us, and we know that's what you have to do. And then I think now the other thing is all the teams and all the manufacturers are good bikes. I think maybe not in the last 10 years, but before there was always, in my opinion, the 2 to 3 that were like, hey, these are the better teams, these are the bikes to be on, and this is where you need to be if you want to be successful. Where I look at the paddock now, and there's every bike brand and every team under the 450s you can win on, and they're investing millions and millions into their program and their motorcycles. So I think that, personally, I think is where it's gotten to, where it's now all about comfort. We're such in a window of having to have all those things, but we all have those things. So what separates us? And that's where I believe every track is a little different. It might suit one guy a little bit more, but overall, you have to have a comfortability, whether it's with your motorcycle or with you or with your program or whatever it is. And I think that's what's gotten us to this level. And it's going to get, in my opinion, closer and closer and slimmer. And as it even progresses more as far as our lap times. And like I said before, with our video access, if someone does an obstacle, we know within minutes, to where maybe that wasn't the case back in the day. If James did something or Ricky did something, you'd have to be like, follow the guy to see it, or like, hey, did anyone happen to see it? And no, it wasn't the case. Like, that's just kind of the world we're in right now. And there is no secrets. Like, I think everyone pretty much knows what everyone does, and it maybe wasn't like that in the past, where everyone had their individual programs that might work better for them or this or that. And so yeah, it really is crazy. And I think the other thing, for whatever reason, is the guys, we're racing into our 30s now. And I think at least Ricky, James, Dunge, and RV, like, I can speak for those four alone. They maybe stopped, a little shy of what the top 5 besides myself and Chase age-wise are at right now. So just a mixture, but that's what I think.
Yeah, the age thing, I'm a massive fan of it. Like, it was, I was running yesterday and I was watching the Great Outdoors of Ricky's last season, and he won pretty much all the way up until Red Bud and then dipped out, and then James got hurt at Washougal, and it's like he could have had another chance. Like, if he just stuck around for another 7 races, he would have had like another championship. But to think about one of you guys nowadays retiring at 27, it would just seem like crazy. There's so much proof of what you guys can do kind of like going into your 30s, and even for me, like I'm 35 now, I think, something like that. But it's like I'm literally just getting better. Like the last, I reckon since like 31, 32 is when I physically started to even feel a bit better, or I'd say like that's probably like getting more into like my physical peak. So yeah, I think that's a massive thing too, like the years of experience and knowledge and just like bike time and program, like you said, dialing everything in like longer into your career, that even just has to add up to kind of like lifting the level too, right? Because like Eli hasn't slowed down, you haven't slowed down, like Kenny's won a race this year. I mean, and that's all dudes that are, dude, Barsha is probably having one of the best seasons of his life. Yeah,
like you said, I think it is now me, no, I'm 27, so knowing where I'm at right now, it would be extremely weird stepping away. But I see both sides. I really do. I'm with Eldon day in and day out, and those guys for sure had so much pressure to win. And I think, like myself, I'm addicted to winning. So if it's almost easier just to go out on top, and not have maybe those anxieties or those like sleepless nights afterwards. And I mean, honestly, like for me, if I don't have a horrible year like I did last year, say I had another great year, I might not keep going, because I do think it comes to a point where you win so many races, you've made all this money, you've met your wife, and maybe you want to have a family, and there is so much sacrifice. Like, you're on the grind 24/7, 7 days a week. There is no, hey, I'm going to have a cheat meal or crack a beer or whatever. You're grinding every single day, and it's not fun, to be honest. Like, as far as, hey, I'm going to enjoy what I do. Like, some people can say they enjoy it, but I think like for me, I enjoy the racing and the competing. I hate the work and what it takes, but I think that's where maybe for those guys it got to. And once that happens, I understand where that decision is. But from a physical standpoint, it is absurd, that maybe you're leaving millions and millions of dollars on the table and more accomplishments, and knowing how I feel at 27 and just the experience I have, what that does bring to me on race day. So I couldn't imagine. Like, I still feel like I have plenty of years left, and I really want to be the best version of myself that I can. But I mean, for most of those guys, I think they went through the same program, they rode the same teams, they rode the same tracks, and it definitely does get to be a grind and tiring at times, no doubt.
Yeah, then you play that other side, and I'm like fully just speaking as a fan, saying that you guys shouldn't retire, because when you do lay it out like in that way, it's like the other side of the coin is you've made millions of dollars, and you've got your health, you've got a family, you've got kids. Like, you kind of earned that break in a sense, or you've like kind of earned that retirement, So it's like, you make a valid point. I'm speaking literally just as a fan.
Yeah, and I think even right now, like hearing on opening ceremonies with Eli, like he's by far the biggest fan favorite, and I think it's simply just from him being out there still, and him being the face of our sport now in the 450 class over 10 years, and I do think from a fan's perspective, once you've seen a guy, whether you like him or not, he's just been around for forever and doing it, you become a fan. I mean, look at Chad Reed's a perfect example of how big of a fan favorite he simply was, just because of obviously being a great racer and champion, but he was there every season, and at least in the fight and in the hunt, and I think fans do appreciate that. And from our sport being relatively small, there being a familiar face within all those time periods is important too.
Yeah, and then you think about just like the level of attachment that fans get to a guy that they've cheered on, you know, like even for me, man, like the first time I met you, I think you were probably like 14 years old. So it's like, that's nearly 15 years that I've known you and been watching you and following your career. Like I think that's maybe a really great thing about our sport in a sense too, is that you get to, if you're a real hardcore fan of the sport, you get to watch you from a kid and the whole way through, and you just, there is like a level of attachment that you get to guys that you've seen. It's not like a guy that comes in and, you know, get like with the Formula One stuff. I mean, unless you're like a hardcore, but even like, let's say you follow a guy through Formula 3, Formula 2, Formula 1. I mean, you're seeing that dude from 17, 18, 19 years old. Like you're not following Max Verstappen from a go-kart kind of like all the way through. So I guess we kind of have like a different level of access to you guys if you are like a hardcore fan that watches every internet clip and, you know, like follows Loretta's. And it's kind of a pretty dope thing in our sport, realistically, the kind of like coverage that we do have in that way.
Yeah. No, and especially nowadays, like I was Red Bull as a kid, so like you said, they had great media and like they followed us, and they would, whether it was Verb Moto or whatever it was, we had content and you could see it always. And I think now, even with social media or even the amateur nationals now being pretty much accessible to be able to watch every class, is creating that, like you said, those fans and those lifelong fans. And I mean, I think perfect example now would be Hayden, you know, right?
Yeah.
He's a superstar before he even turned pro. So like you said, I do think once you get attached to someone and you're able to see, you know, and have a common future with them, or you can relate to them in a way, then you're going to stick with that guy throughout your career. And when they're 25 or 26 and they're unfortunately retired, then you're like, dang, you know, almost feel like they're just getting started to a sense. But it is a wild sport. It is wild how it all develops, and the career path for everyone is totally different.
When we're talking about like the way that the teams have evolved too, have you even noticed like a level of professionalism, like even within KTM? I mean, they're probably known as maybe like the most gnarly team in the 450 class, but is there even like an evolution internally with the teams and the manufacturers in terms of like how they're testing, what they're, you know, like giving to you guys, the level of support, like the facilities? Can you even see that like kind of evolving through your career?
Yeah, I think for me, KTM's been very similar. Like when I came from, at the time, the Yamaha program, it was a huge step up just to, you know, the professionalism side, the access, you know, how many guys they had that had certain jobs, and the data, and even just alone to the test tracks. I mean, we had 2 like crazy test tracks here in California. We had 3 at Eldon's, we had 1 in Corona, and like just having access to 6 test tracks versus at the time with Yamaha it was 2. So like just that alone is something that you're like, man, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And then just like I said, the technician wise and the data that they have access to, and just the access and knowledge of whether it was the guys they've done it with in the past, whether it was Dunge or Marv, it was crazy to see that, and they've continued to evolve. You know, I think just with there's such little things that do make a difference. You know, like our semi, for example, they just got a brand new crazy semi that now on the weekends you feel a little more comfortable. It's more homey. You have your own space, and you know that might lead to me having a clear head for a Saturday night, and me being able to have my exact diet just because of now our kitchen and our little budget for the food on the weekend is a little bit higher. So just stuff like that, you know, unrelated to motorcycles, but then related to motorcycles, you have pretty much every capability under the sun. So at times it can get you lost having too much access to stuff. But at the same time, like I said, I think you look at all, you know, however many manufacturers there are now, and you have the same exact access under every exact tent. And now even dipping into the 250 class where the factory teams are really throwing an effort into that. And then even beyond that to the amateurs, you know? So I think it's starting a lot sooner. You're having that factory access at a lot younger age and earlier in your career. And then that's what's also evolving us riders or the sport or our performance or motorcycles as well.
Are you glad you grew up in the era, like you had Red Bull as a sponsor, and then you were like, that 150 you're on was like, had some JGR kind of support, but are you glad you grew up in the era that you did, where you didn't have like all the crazy support? Because, you know, like it can, that can go both ways. It's almost like being like, my reference is, I always say like, man, I'm so glad I grew up when there was house parties. Because it's like, the generation now, like there's no fucking house parties.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, that's what, you know, I think we talk about all the time. Is just a difference now. Like it literally blows my mind, the difference between the amateur program right now. And for me, that was only just over 10 years ago, you know, like just in that span, how different it was. Like I went to public school until I was 16 years old, and I rode at basically a night track my whole career, you know, as an amateur. And on the summers off, I would maybe go, I was allowed to go to MTF with Red Bull, but I would go maybe for 2 weeks at a time because it was 14 hours from where I lived. So the biggest thing was like you said, the support. Like we just raced, you know, that's what amateur scenes was all about back then, hitting contingency and racing. And that's what got your name out there, was even if you were winning the Southeast area or you know, we called it the Ultra Mega Series back in North Carolina, like that's what got you fame and sponsors and all that. And then like you said, as you evolve, like at least for me, I wasn't getting paid. I wasn't getting all these sponsor dollars. I was having to earn my money by winning, and then that's basically what paid for me to go to the next round. So yeah, like you said, I'm super thankful the way that not only I grew up, but the way I was involved in the sport. Like I didn't even really want to or knew I could be a professional until I was realistically 14 or so, where it was like, hey, it's kind of time to make a choice. Like I grew up playing sports. Like I wanted to be a pro surfer. I wanted to play basketball or soccer or whatever it was. So I do think it's insane in that aspect, and especially from even the pressure side. Like my pressure came from, and I told the story, I think it was one of the episodes or podcasts I did, but like I didn't have offers as a pro. Like when it was time for me to go pro, I got told no by pretty much, or not no, but like, hey, we're full or this or that from every team in the paddock besides Star Racing. So that was the only opportunity I had. And that's where, you know, we talk about red plate pressure, but to me, real pressure is, hey, you have a 1 year amateur deal and a 1 year pro deal for peanuts, and we need you to move to California. And if you don't make it, like, hey, thanks for your time. So it's different. It is totally different now. Like I said, if you're fast on a 65, you're already getting contracts thrown your way.
Yeah, you've got such a cool career. Like if there was like a career to kind of have, like if you wanted to, you know, like write a real cool underdog kind of story, like you're the guy that's really got that cool kind of deal. And it's so famous, the battles between you and AC and like that rivalry when you were young and you had like a relatively normal childhood. And like you said, you know, that kind of sink or swim on the team. Also just the storybook luck of that Yamaha ending up being like the new pro circuit kind of bike too, you know, like no one saw that coming. I bet you didn't see that coming. And it's like then to be the guy that never really kind of won that much stuff to then just dominating on a lights bike and then, you know, kind of digging your way out of almost like a career-ending 450 to like, you know, the start to that 450 career to then being a 2-time and potentially 3-time champ. Like it's a gnarly career that you've kind of found your way into.
Yeah, no, it is crazy. You know, like you said, it was pretty cool. I actually sat next to AC on the plane, headed here actually after Seattle, and we talked for a long time. And
that's awesome, dude.
Yeah, it was really cool just for us to kind of chat. We chatted about our amateur stuff, and that's where, like you said, I do feel like it's just been a roller coaster of a career, but it's always been a dogfight, you know, and that's just how I've been. I've always had that chip on my shoulder because I had no choice. And you know, that's what we were talking about, just like he had all the shiny PC bikes and was able to be homeschooled and not ride any track in the world. He was riding with Ryan Villapoto and, you know, had Monster and all this stuff. And, you know, I won my fair share, but definitely he won a lot too. And it was like, you know, even if I beat him, it was like no one really cared, you know.
Yeah,
it was like
my
dad just give me a pat on the back, like, good job, bud. And then there was maybe an excuse or a reason or whatever. And it was like, you know, but like you said, that was what I told him the other day, dude. I was like, if it wasn't for you, I might not be the man I am today or the rider I am today, because like you gave me that dog, you know, like you gave me that, like, I want what he has so bad. And like you said, it evolved to the next level. Like I told him how I begged for a visit with Mitch, and Mitch told me, you know, hey, we got AC, like, thanks, we could maybe put you on the Team Green program and give you a few bikes. But other than that, like, best of luck, man. And, you know, same with Honda, like I was their amateur guy, and I kind of thought like the factory connection thing was a shoe in, and they chose a different rider. And then with Red Bull, like Red Bull really did try hard. Like they brought me to TLD, and it's funny because me and TK are great friends now, but I give him crap all the time because, you know, they let me ride the bike, and I'm pretty sure dude didn't even watch me ride that day. He was just kind of doing it as a favor. And, you know, even KTM, I went in there and begged, and they pretty much told me like, hey, yeah, maybe Orange Brigade, and if you do that route, if you're any good, we can put you on the JDR KTM. And that team folded the next year anyway.
Right. I remember that actually.
Yeah, so it was like literally my only option was Star, but Bobby had been for 3 years since I was like a 13-year-old just, hey, we want you, we want you, we want you. And I was like, I respect that and I appreciate it, but with all due respect, like, I don't want to be on Star. Like,
I don't want to wear Metal Militia.
Yeah. A Metal Militia, and, you know, I think at the time they had won maybe one race or so, and it's like, man, I don't really want that. I'm sorry, Bobby, like, I love your attitude and everything, but like you said, then you look at what actually transpired after that, and I couldn't imagine anything else playing out. Like, the bike was amazing. And I say it all the time, that 2013 bike, before we got this new bike that was unbelievable, even that thing was good. And I feel like me and J-Mark could have even won on it, but it was just like this perfect storm, this perfect timing where we're just like these two underdog kids and no real pressure, and, you know, we got a great bike, and it was like we ran with it. You know, we put in the work, and the team did too, and that's what I think why they're still successful, because they're the same people they were back then now, you know, and they're just hard working, like whatever it takes to win. And I remember them having that attitude even when it was like Star Valley and I was an amateur, and I'm like, wait, like, you guys think you can win? Like, I'm sorry, I don't think you can. I don't see, you know? Like, and so it's pretty dang special how it all worked out. And like I said, having all the success I did in the 250s, and like you said, relatively it kind of not coming out of nowhere, but in a sense, you know, it was like year two and we're winning, and against some great guys that, hell, I'm still racing in the 450 class.
Yeah, man, it was I forgot about the JDR thing. I remember your name was getting thrown around the JDR thing for
because it was, I did, basically my contract was up with Honda, and I did that the Super Mini KTM deal for a 1-race deal for the Monster Energy Cup. That was like that first year they did it, and KTM was trying to do something with Orange Brigade, and it become like a thing, but it really wasn't. And JDR was like KTM sort of support, and that's where it was like, hey, if you do good, like we can put you on that team. And then, but like I said, the following year, I think it ended up kind of, I don't know what happened, if it folded or if it just went back to Oz or what, but yeah, it was like, but even at that time, it's like, it was a cool team, but it's like, man, I just busted my balls for years. I don't know if this is really where I want to be, you know, but it all works out for a reason.
Man, the thing is though, is like now you're celebrated for the dog. Like, and it's like that's like the thing that almost it's won you races, dude. Like, how many times have you just fucking hunted someone down in the last lap and just took their soul from their body and left them just questioning everything about their life? And that's not like, a bike doesn't do that, you know. Talent doesn't. That's just you being a real piece of shit inside.
Yeah. No, it's we joke about it all the time. It's the demons, you know. No, but like it is the, I guess, neglect, or like the you know, it's a real thing. I think like me wanting to be professional and be a winner so bad, and getting told no or not having the support or whatever, that like I will literally do whatever it takes to get that. And when I got it, then it was like the next step was I will do whatever it takes to be on the podium and win a race. And then it just excels from there. And it's still in me. Like, I will literally die to win, because like that's just how I was brought up, and what the circumstances maybe I had when I was an amateur or as a kid. Like, you know, I think it is in the helped with my dad raising me and my mom, and like it was just like we were blue collar, like come from nothing. Like, you just worked for everything you had, and it's either if you don't get it, then it's going to be someone else's. And you know, I got taught a long time ago, like, life's not fair, so like go for it. Like, if whatever you want, you're going to have to work your ass off and achieve. So I think I still carry that in my racing. And like you said, I almost go into this deep, dark place that, you know, it's I don't even know how to put it in perspective, but like it's just a blackout zone that I will do whatever to win. And you know, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but I can always know that I gave it my absolute all no matter what. And you know, like you said, it's definitely helped define me as a racer and my career.
And then like that narrative becomes a part of you, right? And then you can almost, I can imagine that you can almost just dig into that almost like on cue. It's the bike doesn't have to be good, the track doesn't have to be good. Like, you don't need it's almost like that comes out of you when things aren't going good. And as a racer, like, to have the best part of you happen when everything else around you is kind of going to shit, like, that seems like the craziest advantage. And then because it's happened so many times, like, it's like the whole shot thing. Like, you believe that that's going to happen. That's not like I hope this dude comes out of me. It's like you've been there so many times that it's like a part of your own story that you genuinely believe. And it's almost like becomes this like self-fulfilling prophecy that can just happen over and over again. And it's just such a crazy weapon to have as an athlete, and you just can't fake that shit.
No, like you said, and that's where the experience, or just like you said, that mindset, I truly have never once lined up when I'm in a good spot to win, knowing that I can't win, you know. And even like till the checkered flag flies, like, there's not one part of me that is saying, oh man, you're not going to win. Like, that's just what I've trained myself to think and believe. And like when the main event comes, like, yeah, practice might be crap, or the bike, like you said, is not working well tonight, but it's just like, hey, you signed up for this. This is part of it. Like, when your back's against the wall, you have one of two choices, and option B isn't a choice. So it's like you go for it. And like I said, I think it's happened now, like you're saying, so much, and it's become natural and part of it. And it's sad, not sad, but there's times now where like I'll be having a good day or I will win a heat or something, and it's like I don't have that same maybe fire that I would if I did suck all day or something happened. Or, you know, I think I am unique in the sense of like when I get mad or pissed off, I can tap into even this whole nother side of me that you know I don't show or know I even have. So you know, it doesn't work for everybody, but I definitely enjoy those moments, like you said, when it gets tough and when it gets gnarly. And, you know, like right now, being tied for a championship, like it is best man win. So LFG.
Let's be the best man.
So it's definitely an incredible, I'd say, trait that I have, and I hope to continue to have that and see where it takes me.
Dude, the race that I think personifies it for me was maybe it was 3 rounds to go, and I think it was at one of the Atlanta races, and like Kenny's out front, and then you're hunting him down, and then he makes that mistake at the end of the whoop section. And then what was it, Atlanta?
Yeah, Atlanta 3. It was the last one, yeah.
Atlanta 3. But it wasn't just like, so you hunted him down and then you made that pass, but it was like the next few laps for me. I think we were doing a Supercross Companion and I was like losing my shit. I was like, dude, slow the fuck down. Like, what are you doing? You were just sending it. It was like you had no... Like, you were just in the zone. Like, and there was no... You weren't going to change what you were doing. You weren't going to change lines. Like, I remember there was one... It was like a left double right. And it was so sketchy. And no one else was really jumping it. And you had the lead on the last lap and you were still jumping it. And that, to me, like... Those 4 laps between, you know, the last lap before Kenny threw it away and then the checkered flag, I was like, Cooper Webb, right there. Just put that in a box... And that's the dude, like, if you ever need to explain him, that's that guy, because there was no reason to be going as fast as you were going on those last few laps. It was so dangerous. And like...
I remember that one. It was...
Do you remember that?
Yeah, I mean, that was that was when we were doing, like, week-long races, you know, so, like... It was during COVID, and Kenny was... He wasn't good at the first Atlanta because it rained and maybe had some issues, but I extended my points lead, and kind of same thing. Like, I remember round 2, I got a little comfortable, like, you know, and Kenny was on fire. Like, I think he won that main event and I had issues. I went down, I got like a 5th or something, and like tightened the points back up. And then the whoops, you know, like especially on...
so gnarly.
There were so many of them. They were so gnarly. He was so good in them. He was good all day, like qualified first by a mile, won his heat, and he was just on. And he got the whole shot. I started second, and dude, he walked away from me. Like, I remember the first 5, 6, 7 laps, dude just was walking away from me, and I was so mad, like trying my absolute balls off and couldn't catch him. And then he had that mistake in the whoops, and it was just like a 180. It was like, here it is. I will, once again, like, no matter what, I'm winning this race. And was able to get him late. And, you know, like you said, I was absolutely going for it. I remember, like, skimming off a few bales in the whoops. Like, he went to jumping, I still skimmed, and was like, I am going for it, because I knew how much pace he had. And if he just clicked one lap, he had pace on me, so he could bridge that gap that I had. And yeah, I remember I cased that quad, almost went into the tough blocks, sketchy over the double, but like I said, was able to win the race and hold on to it. And like, for me, even though he had the mistake and whatever, it was one of those ones where I was like, damn, you know, like, it would have been very easy to just throw it in the towel, collect a second, get still good points, and call it a night. But I did maybe the opposite of that and dug deep, and obviously took it to the next 2 rounds and won the title. So yeah, you just never give up, man. That was one thing my dad always taught me, and I think is instilled in my head no matter what. Like, you just never give up, because you really don't know what can happen.
Yeah, man, I think that for me was just one of those races. And then I think Houston that year as well, obviously, like that whole last lap deal. And, you know, like you got definitely Dino getting in the way.
Yeah.
There was like some like luck in that, but then it's like, make your own damn luck, bro. You know, like, and I think too, like you've got this unique ability to fuck with dudes as well that we just like. I wish there was more use in the sport when it comes to that. Like that was the year where you wrote red plate and literally got the red plate that same weekend. And it's like, you know, I know you're talking shit on the line and the finger gun to Sexton, like, and then we see him crash in the main. It's just like you're the only guy that is really kind of doing it. And like, yeah, I don't know, man, it's fucking cool. And as a fan, like I wish there was more guys that did it, but maybe there's just not guys that can pull it off in the way that you can.
Well, you definitely put a target on your back, right? And I think it then adds to the pressure of like we talked about earlier, like
but
now you have to perform,
diamonds, right?
Yeah, you got to perform now. Like if you're going to be that asshole that talks crap and then doesn't back it up, like it ain't good. So you got to definitely have the confidence. But, you know, I do think that in our sport right now, it is a lot of mental. Like we spoke about, you got to have all the things, but I think, you know, the focus and the mentality that it takes now to really get the job done for 20+1, it's huge. And I think that's where I'm pretty damn good and obviously can be better, but I do feel like it's something where it does take where you need to maybe knock your competitor off his game or, you know, take a little jab and see what happens. And it's definitely easier said than done. It's like you're saying, it'd be easy. Like, why don't people do that? Well, it's not easy, you know, because if you do poke the bear, you know, like I know if someone did it to me, I'm going to black out and I'm going to make sure no matter what, you're not beating me no matter what. But not everyone can do that same thing, and maybe it might affect them differently. So, you know, like I said, I think it's something that I do, and maybe it's not preferred or people don't like it or whatever the case may be, but that's just the way I am. And if it works, then it works, right? And if it doesn't, then it doesn't. But sometimes it's definitely needed to knock someone off their game.
So how much of it is premeditated? Like, so when you come over the heat race with Chase and you give him the little finger bang, then like, is that so? Because like I just know you outside of like the Supercross, like being in a stadium, and it's like you're just that guy that is like down to talk shit. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's like, and a lot of times when you're in that situation, it's so like off the cuff and you're not really thinking about it, you're just talking shit. So it's like, is there all right, I'm actually gonna fuck with Chase Sexton tonight, and I'm gonna see if I can force that mistake, or, you know, like make him, like you said, take him off the game? Or is it just you win the heat race and before you even know it, you're looking back and you're shooting him down?
No, it's 100% like split second in the moment. Like you said, I think a lot of people don't get to see me on race day or really see, you know, how I am as normal, but it's crap talk from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and, you know, me and the team or my mechanic or me and AP, like just jabs after jabs after jabs, talking crap. Like, you know, that's what I enjoy is that little bant and that, like, hey, you know, let's talk crap, and maybe it fires me up or fires someone else up, and it's what I enjoy. So yeah, it's 99% of the time it's always like just in the moment, like what I'm feeling, whether I do a sight lap and I know, like, all right, I'm gonna win this race, or like I said, in that moment I just felt good, like I just won my heat, I led wire to wire, and, you know, it was just like, all right, I'm feeling myself and feeling good, and it's more just like you said, kind of bants, if you will. So yeah, I mean, nothing's ever been premeditated.
Yeah, and I think that comes from you feeling obviously like comfortable to just be yourself, you know, like, because there's guys that probably just want to not put that pressure on themselves or want to not like deal with, because so you do that, right? And it's like, I'm asking about it. The press conference was asking about, like, there's just a level of shit that something like that brings, right? So when you start to do those things and then you realize like, oh man, I'm going to have to just deal with like all this shit just from being myself. And it's like, because people want to know like, oh, did you think that up? Did you this? Did you that? And the answer really is like, bro, I'm just like that with everybody. Like, and I actually wish I could be even gnarlier than what I am. But it's just probably not socially accepted. So it's like, I think that it is cool that you're one of the guys that kind of like does let their true colors show, like, to an extent. Because, dude, like Ricky, when you're around that guy, it's fucking savage, bro. Like, being around,
you should
like
see
him and
text
JH, dude. Like, whoa.
Yeah. No, like I said, going back to your first question, it is, like I said, maybe for me, I'm different, but I grew up playing stick and ball sports. Like, that's what you did. You know, playing basketball, you're guarding someone. For the 4 quarters, you're just talking crap, slicing at each other. Like, anything goes. Football, soccer, like, whatever I did, that's just what you did. You know, like, that's the nature of the game. So I do think that's just something that has stuck with me. And like you said,
that's
now
such a good point.
You know, and it's tough because, like you said, it does bring awareness to it, or consequences, or whatever it is, because it is quite abnormal in our sport. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just what I grew up doing. It's what I still do. I mean, you know, if people could have the recordings of me and my practice mechanic or me and my race mechanic stuff like throughout the day, it's nonstop, dude. It's like people would be blown away the stuff that we'll say or do. And like you said, even with Ricky, like, I'm friends with all the guys and stuff, but he's one, any chance he can get to throw a text at me or a little, but I love it. Like, I literally love it. I think it's awesome. And like, that's what gets me going, you know? And so yeah, everyone's definitely different, but that's what I enjoy, and I'll definitely continue to be myself and express myself that way. And, you know, I'll hopefully not anything happens differently.
Were you did you do the Auckland Supercross in 2019? Were you doing that? Did you ever do the
not
NZ?
19. No, I did the Sydney and I think it was 16 and 17.
16, 17,
no, I never went to Auckland though. I wanted to.
Dude, we were at the Auckland in 19. We were walking out. There was like they put on like a night in the casino, and fucking Ricky was just at JH the entire time. Like, I don't think you could take Jace. I don't think you could if you two wrestled. And then he's like, jiu-jitsu is better than wrestling, like 100%. And he was just going in on him, dude. And we ended up like walking out of the table room where we were all playing, and then me and JH just felt like this big open spot, and JH just like trying to double leg me, and it was all just Ricky just going and going and going and going. It's like that's that personality type. I think that like RV was the same. I mean, I didn't have too 100%. Much to do with him like on a personal level, but there just is something about I guess like the type of dude you need to be to deal with those kind of like situations. It seems like that personality type like really kind of fits well within not even just our sport, but like sport in general, you know, like you look at like a Conor McGregor, or you look at any of the football guys, the basketball guys, like that is such like a personality type that is suited towards competition.
Yeah, it is 100%. I think you're either that person or you're not, you know, like I think even now with Dunge, when he comes to some of the races and stuff, he'll look at me like, dude, this dude's lost his mind. Like, so it is funny. But then, like you said, I same thing. I know RV, and he's the exact same way, and like to the T. And like, even when I was around Jet and Hunter a lot last year, like, dude, it was nonstop, you know, like every single thing. And I think there's just the type of competitor you're like. If you're competitive, that's normally the way you are, but not everyone is, you know. Some guys are ultra different, and the fact of they're just quiet and to themselves and like can do it differently. But yeah, I've been that way forever, and I enjoy it. And like you said, I think it's it's almost like a motivating thing. And like even Eldon telling stories, like that's how him and RV were, you know, like he literally tells a story about RV, like one day was just bored and decided to tackle him off a jump, and like that's what got the best out of RV that day, was just literally because he tackled Eldon and Eldon put him in a headlock and made him go do a moto. Like, I don't know. I think we're all, something's wrong with every one of us that race this, but you know, some of us just tick a little different, and certain things just get the best out of us.
Well, I think it's something as well, like the fact that you went to public school until you were 16. Like, no one would have given a fuck about your dirt bikes. Like, would like it, because school was ruthless for me, dude. Like, I was just I had like a bunch of school fights and played school footy, and it was just like, as soon as class was out, it was just who could survive the verbal and physical beatings that were going to go down by, like, it was just a fucking zoo, you know?
It is, man. And I think, you know, all of us people that went to public school, like, that's just how it was. But like I said, no one even knew who I was, like, as far as the dirt bike. Like, all my friends came from just because of who I was. And I remember I was always a small guy, and especially high school, like middle school and stuff, it isn't too bad, but high school, like PE, like we would box every day in the locker room. And then like when we transitioned to like, weight training, and dude, I was weak. Like, I'm small. Like, I pretty much got verbally abused. Like, I was a verbal punching bag for people because of my bench press or because of my squat. Like, I was just so like you said, it's what it was. Like, that was life. Like, unfortunately, and it's not real bullying, but it's just like you said, banter and like talking crap, and that's just what school was with the boys. And you know, whether it was over sports or a girl or whatever, like you're talking crap, and that's just the generation that I grew up in, and like yourself probably grew up in, and probably 80% or 90% of people that did go to public school. And I wouldn't have it any other way, because like I said, I look back and those were some of the funnest times of my life, and you know, growing up that way is what I couldn't imagine doing anything else. Like, man, it was fun.
Yeah, and you do, like, in the moment, I fucking hated school. Like, when I was there, I could not wait to leave that place. Like, I showed up, we got like super drunk the last, like, before we got our graduation certificates. They made like this huge deal about, you will not get your graduation unless you show up to this last day. So we were like, all right, we're going to show up fucking wasted. Like, just smell like booze. So like I mean, I couldn't wait to get out of there. But now I look back at it and I'm like, I couldn't imagine not dealing with the shit that I had to deal with as a kid. Like, it was almost like traumatic, but it's like that trauma builds so much character, you know? Like, my life would have been so much easier if I didn't go to school, but now that I'm an adult, I'm like, I don't know if easy's the move.
Nah, easy's not the move, man. It's I'm all for peaks and valleys, like you said. But I agree, like, the schoolwork itself was so painful, and like just having to do it, I struggled honestly with learning, you know, that way and that style too. So it was a little harder on me, but my mom was a teacher, so that definitely helped. But like you said, like, just especially once you got your license, like, school was the coolest thing ever. You know, like, I had a moto van, and just going into, you know, I was a sophomore, so I wasn't really that cool because I'm young, but had a speaker in my van and just bumping it, and like, man, it was just like, it's fun to look back and think of, or going to the football games and with your friends. And you know, it's cool because I still have a bunch of friends from my hometown and school that same kind of thing. They know I'm, you know, famous or whatever they want to call it for back home, and have done well with my career, but they treat me the exact same, and are just good dudes, you know. So I'm super blessed to have brought up in that environment. And like I said, obviously it wasn't easy, and you know, with my family or with my friends or whatever the case was, it definitely wasn't easy, and I could have went a million different ways with maybe distractions or whatever the case you want to call it. But you know, I knew what my parents taught me as a kid, and had those good morals, and it all worked out really well.
Dude, you're so right. Getting your license is probably like the dopest year of your life, or like 2 years. Because I didn't think about it like that, but I would always tell people, like, so we don't call it, like, we call it just like middle school and high school, like primary, middle, high school. I didn't enjoy school until like the end of year 10 and 11 and 12.
Yeah, exactly.
But that was when I got my license, dude. And we were just like, we were having the sickest house parties back then too. Like, and that just, I remember feeling sorry for my brother because the house parties just like kind of weren't the same. But like we had house parties where people would like find out when people went on holidays and then like break into their house and have like these parties in these people's houses while they were on holidays, and no one had any idea that they didn't own the houses until like after the party. You'd have like this 2 weekend party house where you're just like, where the fuck has this place been the entire time? And then you have two of the dopest parties, and then that place never is open again.
Yeah, it was similar. You know, like it was funny for me. I didn't actually drink until I won my first ever 250 championship. So for me as a kid, I would go to all the house parties. I'd be around the drinking and smoking or whatever, but that's when I actually started to gain popularity because I would be the DD. I had this big van. I had a couch in it. Like everyone could just ride with me there, and same things. Like we would find these, grew up on the beach, and we would find like these Airbnbs or like rental properties or something that like we knew no one would be in. And like you said, it's just, when you look back, like, man, it's so bad. And like, I would hate for my daughter now to hear me saying this, house, but like, man, it really was fun. And just like I said, I think me maybe growing up that way, but also knowing what the right and wrong was and making those decisions of like when to be responsible and when to not, and knowing that if I wasn't, that, you know, you were going to get punished and stuff was really cool. And like I said, I'm glad that, and that's what I told Adam, I'm like, dude, I couldn't imagine like getting punished for not riding good that day or something. Like I got punished for getting a C in school or like being home past my 10 o'clock curfew. Like, and he's like, oh no, like I got in trouble if I, you know, went over like a 2-minute lap time. I'm like, yeah, maybe I didn't want all that as a kid.
Well, man, it's funny. Like, I bet there was a massive part of you that was like seriously jealous of AC, and like it probably caused you like actual pain as a kid. That you know, like now that you've got perspective on it, then you probably go like, oh, I'm kind of glad it worked out the way that it did. But dude, 14-year-old, like 12, 13, 14-year-old Cooper Webb probably fucking hated his life because of AC.
Yeah, it was tough in the sense of just the riding. You know, like I said, I was probably 13 or 14 when I really was like, you know what, I want to be a pro moto guy, and this is what I want to do. And like, I saw there was value in it. Like it was going to be rewarding financially, or like that's what I wanted to do. Was I saw what my talent was. So what was tough was like my dad owned a surf shop, and so he would be working nonstop, but me and my mom were on the same schedule because she was a teacher. So we would get out of school at 3:30, and then that was the time that we had to go to his shop. We would load our setup up. It was like her SUV pulling a little single trailer with one motorcycle, and we would haul butt, drive 45 minutes to our local track that, you know, hasn't been worked on in a month. And we got there at 4:30, and with daylight savings, we got to ride until 5. And once it got dark, like, it's over, you know? And so that was my training. You know, that was my weekly, like we would go twice a week because it was all we could maybe afford in gas or whatever. And like, that's what we did. And then as soon as Friday after school hit, we're driving to a race, and we're racing all day Saturday, all day Sunday, coming back home and starting the grind over again, you know, like with school. And so it was tough for me because, like you said, in the sense of looking back, I'm glad I lived the childhood that I did live, or the amateur experience I did live. But when I would go to some of these amateur nationals and maybe get beat or not be as good as maybe I could because I'm just simply not riding enough. Or like I remember thinking like in my own head, like my mom's taking me to the track, like, yeah, it's great and I appreciate it and I love it, but like these kids have mechanics and like they're with at least their dads or whatever, to where I'm like in this kind of ghetto ass setup, like unloading my bike and just being like, damn it, like, all right, mom, let me help you unload the bike, like, to where everyone else might have mechanics, or they're, like I said at the time, like AC would be on a Super Mini riding with freaking Villapoto. Like, you just see it on YouTube and you're like, this is the kid I got to race? Like, are you joking? So, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it's cool though. Like, I got so much respect for it in the sense that, I mean, that what you're describing just sounds like a lot like my childhood, but I did nothing with racing, you know, like, so it's like, I remember my dad would just set like this ridiculous list of shit that we'd have to do. He finished work at like 4:30 and we had like the worst track was down the road from our place. And it was like, yeah, same deal. We had to like load our bikes up into this trailer. And then if dad had a shit day at work and the chores weren't done, then he was just like, I ain't fucking taking you anywhere. Like, you haven't done shit. And then, you know, we did get to the track. I had like the worst bike. I never went on a run. I didn't know about training. And then I'd get to the track and then I'd suck so bad. And then I'd just be like bummed that I couldn't ride good, you know? So it's like, all of those obstacles led to me not riding, like not being a good racer. So it's like for someone like you to be faced with those things, like I feel like you just had the most average, normal, like that's what 99% of kids do. And it's funny, like even, you know, like we'll post like Deegan content. And people, you just immediately get the kids like, well, I've got this 04 CR piece of shit, and like if I had what he had, and it's like, motherfucking Cooper Webb didn't have that, you know, like people, there is champions that get made from those like really shitty circumstances, and it's like, I just don't think that story gets told enough in a sense, you know, and especially not these days, because it's like, I had what you had and I'm not you.
No, and it's frustrating for me to see that too, like you said. Like, obviously, you know, if you did have, or if I did have the access to maybe what AC had or what Hayden had or whatever, then yeah, I might have been more ready sooner or put myself in a better situation. But like you said, I think the biggest thing in nowadays is, like you said, if you want something, like, go for it. Like, I have always had that in my heart. Like, whatever your dream is, like, you can do it. And I know it sounds so cliche, but like, I really do see there is nothing that stops you from whatever you want to be. And that's just what I've always believed. And that's what I still believe. And I'll preach to my children and my children's children, like, whatever it is, go for it, you know, because there really is nothing holding you back. And like you said, I think I wanted to, once I knew what I wanted to do, there was nothing that was going to stop me from succeeding, you know. And I think in sport in general, like we talk about, like, you know, it might change, it might not, but you look at every great athlete or anybody that has really changed their sport, they come from absolutely nothing, you know. They're not coming from, you know, and I'm not knocking it, but wealthy families or all these great equipment. Like, the champions and the guys that 9 times out of 10 have had absolutely nothing and have had like maybe these traumas or these life circumstances that have created or defined them. So yeah, I'm with you. It definitely is unfortunate, like when you do hear the comments about that, or I wish I had that, or if I could have had that. And it's like, bro, you can, whatever you put your mind to, you can do. So either do it or don't, and quit the what ifs, you know. I hate the what ifs, so definitely gets me fired up. But I do hope that I can help share my story or help someone that may be struggling with that or not have what they think they need to succeed in whatever it is. That no, like, you bust your ass, you put your life into it, you're gonna succeed, and it's gonna work out, you know, to some extent. Sure, once you get there, you're not sure what's gonna happen, but once you set your mind to something, I truly am a fan and believer that you can do whatever that is. So yeah, I encourage kids to dream big and do it, man.
Yeah, and I think that it's sort of, I think like with my kids, like you're a father now I'm not yet, but I think with my kids, like I really want them to have a taste of seeing the result of hard work early, if that makes sense, because I feel like nowadays, like I know I have an insane work ethic, and it's like the podcast, to do what I've done with that is purely like if you could see the setup right now, you'd be, well, I mean, even like the way that we're doing this right now, like this is not fucking ideal, but it's like we're grinding this shit out, we're like making this shit happen. And it's like when I guess I figured out the recipe of like how to succeed at something, and it was just through hard work, man. Like and when I started the podcast, I was talking to a guy about it the other day, I just was full time. People always say to me like, oh, how long did it take you to do the podcast full time? And I was like, no, I was like, from the day I started it, I did nothing else. Like I had no money. I just had enough equipment to physically record the shows. And I sat down by myself every single day at a desk for 8 hours when I had no sponsors, nothing to edit, nothing to do. Like I watched YouTube videos, I looked at other people, like it just became this thing that I got obsessed with, like doing. I was like, I think this could be good, and I think I could be good at it. So maybe it's like what you said, like when you find your talent, like when you figured out that like, okay, this is my talent and this is what I want to do. And now, like, being 5 years down the track and where this shit's at now, I've got a different perspective of my entire life and like all the reasons why things didn't work out. And it was like, you didn't want this bad enough. Like this wasn't this straight. Like I can be so fucking honest with myself now because I've had a certain level of success in this thing. And I look back and I'm like, this failed because of you. This failed because of you, this failed because of you, and this failed because of you. And there's no, like, the old version of me that like wasn't sitting in this position now looked back and made excuses and looked at, looked on the negative side of those things. And like I think about riding as a kid, like you just didn't do enough laps, bro. Like every time you get all you give a fuck about Tech 8s, like, and having like a nice pipe. Like you didn't do the laps that you would have needed to do. And talent aside or whatever, like I didn't even get to the point where talent come into the fucking question because you just didn't work at it at all. And it's like, and that's why you didn't succeed. And it's like it is such a good message, but I don't know, like maybe I think going forward with my kids, when I have kids, it's like I really think that there's value in setting them up to have like some kind of hard work pays off. And like because I think once you can see the roadmap, it doesn't change, whether it's in business, whether it's in relationships, whether it's in motocross, whether it's in whatever it's in. The roadmap is the same. Like you said, it's not a secret.
No, and you nailed it. Like, I think that is the biggest myth known to man, is that life hands you opportunities, or like you get handouts. Like that's the biggest myth ever. You don't look into anything. Hard work, to matter what degree, is what gets you what you want, whether it's relationships or your job or your dreams. Like that is what gets you that accomplishment or that goal. And like you said, you can't stress it enough. Like we all have to be a little bit crazy to go after our dreams. But, I look at it like, hey, am I crazy for pursuing my dream, or am I crazy for not pursuing my dream? To me, I don't ever want to have a regret or look back in 10 years and, like you said, have a laundry list of excuses of why it didn't work out. Or I think in this day and age, everyone is so jealous or like wants to be like, oh, well, they had this, or Jace got this podcast because it fell into his lap. Like, no, that's the biggest misconception in life, is hard work will get you there. And it does take sacrifices. Don't get me wrong. Like, there's times where you have to make some tough decisions that aren't easy, but that's, like I said earlier, life isn't easy, you know. And like you said, I think even for me, like my wife, she's a nurse, and I see how hard she's worked to not only become a nurse, but how hard she continues to work to be the best nurse that she can be. And that's what her niche was, and my niche was racing. And I think with anybody, whether it's you're going to be a custodian at a YMCA or an entrepreneur, like, you have to work your ass off. You have to show up and sacrifice whatever it's going to be. And like you said, it very rarely doesn't work out, in my opinion. And if it doesn't work out, at least you go to sleep at night knowing, you know what, I gave it my absolute all. And you'll never stay up knowing like, oh man, I wish I would have attempted, or I wish I would have done it. So I'm with you. I mean, it's a tough thing to teach. And even with my daughter, like I said, I know how certain things I grew up, or situations I grew up, that I wouldn't want her to deal with. But the biggest thing that I want to teach her is hard work. And like I said, whatever you want to do, you can do it. There's nothing holding you back. And yeah, I mean, like I said, I think that's the biggest thing in life that is so misconcepted right there, is handouts, and you know, that you can just kick your feet up and it'll happen. Like, it don't work like that. And if it does happen, you know, that handful of times for that person, then it's a very rarity, you know, and it ain't sustainable if they don't have that hard work ethic.
Yeah, but I think as well, there's like a little bit, me and my partner, we talk about this all the time as well, is that there's such like a want or like a lust from people these days to just have like this epic fucking life, you know, and it's like, you see guys like, there's guys like yourself that's so aspirational, or like a fucking Jake Paul, or like, we're so inundated with people that are like almost these self-made celebrities and have like a level of internet fame, or they're living these like crazy lives. But I feel like there's just almost too much stock put into that these days, and maybe it's like a part of me getting a little bit older. But like, I've got one of my best friends, he's a jiu-jitsu coach, and he worked he's like literally one of my heroes. Like, he started jiu-jitsu, he was overweight, and he was like smoking fucking cigarettes and partying like crazy, and he was like, I kind of need like a life change, right? So then he joins up at this jiu-jitsu academy and was like dog shit at it for like 3 years. Like, he was telling me he didn't win a competition until like the end of his blue belt. So like 4 years in to competing and like doing jiu-jitsu, he was just getting fucked up by dudes like but the day that he started it, he was like, oh, this is what I'm gonna do. I want to own a gym. And like, man, to walk in on your first day of jiu-jitsu and experience the mauling that you would experience, and then leave that place going like, oh, I want to open a gym one day and be a black belt. Like, dude, you're staring down the barrel of minimum 10 years of just like suffering, right? And so he quit his job as a real estate agent on the Gold Coast, making like good cash, fully living like the real estate life, and got a job at a supermarket. And he worked at that supermarket for the next 8 years, dude. His chick left him. Like, everyone was kind of like, people would still say to him, and he was a brown belt at the time, so he'd gone like almost all the way to black belt, and people were like, man, you're still working at a supermarket? Like, dude, and I've known him now for like 5 years, and so I sort of saw like the middle like half of this whole journey, right? Fast forward to maybe like 3 years ago, he gets the academy, he gets his black belt. And now he's got like an insane amount of students. He's got a wife, a kid. He's like dialed. Like, he's not baller status, you know, like making fucking millions of dollars. But like, his life is dialed. He's got the car he wants to have. He lives in the house he wants to live in. He does jiu-jitsu every single day. His wife works at the academy, and his kid is on the mats there every single day, and the kid is insanely happy. Like, his wife is a legend, and he is like, he's he's living the life that he wants to live. It's not this like glamorous, crazy, excessive lifestyle. He's not out getting pussy every weekend. He's got no internet, like he's got no followers online. But like I look at him and I'm like, dude, you've figured it out. Like you grinded for this thing and you like built your life around what you wanted to do, and it was like this genuine. He lived every part of the process. There was no shortcuts, and it's like I just feel like guys like that don't get enough credit. You know, like even your dad owning a surf shop. It's like you got this guy in North Carolina that has like loved surfing, loved that whole world, and just wanted to own a surf shop and raise good kids. Like it's an underappreciated and like undervalued pursuit of just like a normal, humble, good life.
Yeah. No, and yeah, you're 100% right. And I think it's, like you said, it's the happiness perspective, right? I think is important. Like I'm sure your mate now has a reason to take his head off his pillow every morning, and that's what he does. And you know, I think that's a common perspective too. Like you said, that money is everything, and that whatever you do, it's to be money based. And I disagree with that. I think it's important and it's a tool, but it's not everything. And I think the other thing, like you were mentioning, like you don't have supporters, you don't have fans, you don't have people in your corner when you are doing these crazy things that you want to do. You know, there's very rarely where you'll have someone support you the whole way, just like I'm sure your mate was. Like I'm sure there was probably no one that was like, you know what, that sounds like a great idea to stop being a realtor and open your own jiu-jitsu gym and work at a supermarket. There's no one, you know, and that's where I say you got to be a little crazy for sure, you know, and I think we all are and we're all capable, but no one wants to take that step, and no one wants to really, like you're saying, absolutely put everything into it and go, you know what, I'm going to do this come hell or high water. And like you said, I think for me, that's where I put myself, and sounds like you and your mate and all these people, you got to have a reason to get up every morning and do what you do and have that motivation, because you can have all the money in the world, or you can have the most comfortable job or the most comfortable life that you think is what's happy and what's pursuing. But if you're absolutely miserable, or if you're, 30 years into your life going, man, I don't look forward to the rest of my life, or man, you have these doubts, then to me, it's not worth it. I'd much rather take those sacrifices. And like I said, then if it doesn't work out, then you at least know, hey, you know what? I tried my ass off. I tried everything to do this, and maybe it didn't work out. But like I said, I think 9 times out of 10 with hard work and just putting your best foot forward no matter what and doing it, it's going to work out. And yeah, I agree with you. Like you said, with my dad doing what he did, I wasn't born when he started it, but it was crazy, at that time to go and manufacture surfboards and do that on the East Coast of North Carolina, where surfing is not big by any means. And he built, like, even now, like on the East Coast, he's a superstar in the surfing community, and he still continues to shape boards and shape some of the best damn boards up and down the East Coast. So it didn't come from lack of hard work, though. That's 100% true. And so like I said, I think you don't have to have all this money. You don't have to have all these things and these material things to get you to accomplish your goals. It's literally your brain and you putting it on paper, putting it into real life, and just doing the damn thing,
When you I completely agree. And then the thing is that when it's like genuine and real, then that's what gets you through, like you said, peaks and valleys before. Yeah. And it's like, because when you go through those lows, like you kind of only have yourself to count on, in a sense, and like you're a dude that you've had like the craziest of highs, but the lowest of lows in the sport too, so I guess, like, what are you banking on when you do go through those low times, like the first 2 years on 450?
Yeah, I think, for myself personally, I have a higher power. I'm believe in Christ, so that gets me through a lot. But I think for me, it's understanding the highs and lows of life, and knowing that, you know, you're put on earth for trials and tribulations, and you're going to have great highs and you're going to have lows. And I truly think that you can handle anything that you're thrown, and it's a test. You know, I that's just my thinking, not to go too crazy or too deep, but that's what I truly believe. And so I think it's all about perspective and keeping a level head and knowing, hey, there's going to be days that suck and I might be down and depressed and whatever, but there are brighter days ahead, and there's going to be times where I couldn't be any happier or any more blessed. So I think that's what keeps me going, and obviously within my career, but it's not only your career, you know, it's your day to day. It's tough. It's a grind, and you know, I think it's important to just know, like, hey, it's going to be lows and it's going to be highs, but the more level I can be, and I'm going to be able to adapt to both of those the best of my ability. So I think, and I said in my racing career, that's what I always kept saying, whether I was hurt or on the couch with underfilling my potential or whatever it was. Like, I never lost faith in knowing that, hey, it's going to not only get better, but one day I will succeed to some level, you know? Yeah, you don't know that level, but not losing hope, and then just kind of understanding, like, hey, once you're on a high, you can only ride a high for so long as well, unfortunately. And you got to understand the peaks and valleys.
When you went through those 2 years at Yamaha, like, did you believe that you could still be a 450 champ, like, after how, because it's one thing to, like, come in, have some success, and then, you know, like, you kind of have a run of like bad, but to just not taste any success at all for like the first 2 years of your 450 career, like, were there doubts where you were like, man, maybe I'm just not a 450 guy?
You have that creep. You know, I think that's the biggest one you have, is that exact words, like you just said, is I'm not a 450 guy. Because you see it, you know, it's if you look at the history, like, you'll see guys that have dominated on a 250, but maybe had a mediocre 450 career or never enjoyed the success that they did on a 250. But me personally, I knew at some point I'd figure it out, you know, and I didn't know when or where or how, but I knew I don't have this much talent and have done things on a 250. Like, I feel like I accomplished a lot in the 250 class, and I knew what I could do, and I never doubted it, but it was for sure like, man, maybe I won't be as good as what I was in the 250, but I knew at some point, some way, somewhere along the line, it would come together, you know. And I think, like, my rookie year, your rookie year is tough regardless. There's no way to slice it. Like, I wasn't maybe as prepared as I could have been. I didn't know how to set up a 450. I didn't know the level of competition. I mean, I didn't know how to stay healthy for that long. Like, there was a lot of unknown. To where my second year, I'd say, like, there was a lot on my end that was a little out of my control, which was, we had a new bike and we didn't have a lot of time on it. I had torn my UCL and my thumb doing the GP at WW Ranch, which was in September of 17. So I didn't even get on the dirt bike until December 4th that year, coming into the season. So I knew, you know, 4 weeks on a 450 on a brand new bike, zero base, zero training. Like, I knew I was going to struggle, you know. So, but when you go in it and you're having those struggles, it's hard to climb yourself out of it, no matter how much belief you had. And at that time, at that year, like, it started to come around. Like, I think round 8 or so, I got 4th, and then Tampa, I got 4th, and then I got a podium at Daytona, and I felt like I was starting to kind of make some strides at being a contender again, and at least just being on the podium. I had the potential to be on the podium, and that Tuesday, probably the best I've been feeling. I'm confident, feeling good. Chain snaps, separate my shoulder, you know, and so that's what I talk about. Like, and then I'm racing because I'm stubborn and hard-headed and want to be out there, and I'm getting 10th, 12th place, and then I end up breaking my leg because I'm in shambles, you know, and then it's even worse. So that's where it is, like, you're dark in those positions, and you're dark at those times, like, and you ask, why me, or why am I doing this, or what if, like, man, why does this happen? And that's where I knew, like, you know what, shit happens, and for whatever reason, it's meant to be. And then a week later, after I get my surgery on my broken leg, Roger DeCoster calls me and literally tells me, hey, we still think that the old Coop's in there, and we no one beats Jeffrey Herlings in this day and age that isn't a badass rider.
Fact.
And we think that, it might not be year 1 or year 2, but we think with you on our bike and our program that we can get you back to the best version of yourself. And I mean, long story short, it happened by race 3, year 1.
Dude, yeah. I'll be completely honest with you right now. I remember that Chad Reed was like in the conversation for that ride, and with KTM, and I remember literally saying to people, like, there is no way you would choose Cooper Webb over Chad Reed. What a fucking idiot.
Well, also, I remember too at the time, like, I heard later it was him and Stewart.
Really?
Yeah, and it was like,
what, Malcolm?
No, James. That was before he had, like, officially decided to step away. He was kind of 50-50, and, he had, I don't know the whole story, but I think it was one of those things where he kind of wanted to get a 1-year deal and see what he could do, because I think Dunge was just so dominant for those few years. And so, yeah, like you said, it was, and I remember Chad was also kind of in that conversation, and but I think at that time it was like, they knew I had potential, but they hired me strictly to be a B rider to Marv. Marv was going to be the guy, and they felt like they could groom me. I mean, Raj straight up told me that. He goes, by year 3, you'll be winning races. I'm like, sign me up. Like, I don't care how long it takes. Like, I'm in. And then, like you said, it changed 6 months later. I went from 9th in points to 8 wins and a champion. Like, it is pretty crazy. And but like I said, we all got to be a little crazy.
Dude, yeah, I remember. I just remember having those conversations, and then just like, when you call someone after you've like said some shit, and then you're like, you're gonna have to deal with them telling you that you're a fucking idiot. That was me having conversations with people where I was like, there's no way you'd hire Cooper Webb over Chad Reed. Yeah. But man, like, it was an insane turnaround. Like, and I mean, what was it that led to that change? Like, was the Yamaha just that bad for you personally, and then you just got on a bike that had so much development and was so dialed in that you just felt like you could ride the way you wanted to ride?
We struggled a lot with the, I guess you could say, the corporate side,
with
Yamaha. Yeah, like with Star, you could literally, like, their attitude was, you can run whatever you want. Whatever, you can put a purple seat on this motorcycle if it's going to make you go 2 seconds a lap faster.
Yeah.
And it was very opposite there on the 450 side, because that was obviously pre-Star and stuff. So, and I think a lot of they hadn't raced in a long time is another thing that I think people don't realize. Like, they didn't have a factory team for over 10 years, So it was like, there's just so much evolution that happens every year that I just think it was a little behind, and the crew hadn't been involved maybe in racing as much as other people, and so, and then we had the new bike and lack of parts, like that was a real thing, like especially everything coming from Japan. I actually really didn't mind that stock bike, and we rode it stock for a long time, and then basically, or I shouldn't say a long time, but my first few weeks on it, and then it was like, once all the stuff came in, we threw everything shiny part on it, and it was like, oh wait, this thing isn't very good anymore. And we're like, what is it? Well, we don't know, just ride it type deal. So struggle with that. And then, like I said, just knowing now what it takes to win at the 450 level, There was a few other things like on my end that I could have been better. I think, as far as just sacrifice and commitment and like literally your day consists of being a 450 champion, I didn't quite have that for sure. And so that, and yeah, I think the biggest thing when I went to KTM was you go from a program that hadn't won, which was the Yamaha, to a program that had just won the last 3 Supercross championships. You just instantly know, okay, this belief in the bike, this belief in your program and yourself, it just goes up 50% alone before I even step foot on it. So it's like I'd say playing for the Oklahoma City Thunder, then going to the Celtics or the Lakers, one of these teams that have just done it time after time after time. Like you instantly just kind of, you get confident. And then obviously the Alden thing was huge for me. Riding with Marv and Jason and Zacho was for me great, because on the 250 side and with Swanee on the 250s, that's what we always did. Like I rode with AP, I rode with Colt, we rode as a group with Ferrandis, to where on Factory Yamaha we didn't do that. It was like everyone, like 450 I rode by myself, and that was just kind of what Yamaha wanted to do. So just that alone, and then also just having, this was like, hey, with KTM, it was package A, B, or C, whatever one suited you, then we'll build off that. And just a combination. And then I think the biggest thing alone that really doesn't get spoken about enough was Carlos Rivera as my mechanic. He's so smart and is so good at seeing things and knowing what the rider needs and mentality, and just like he spoke to me like the Cooper Webb of 2016, which was a multiple-time champion bad dude. And from day one, like that's just how he treated me. And whether he knows it or not, like that just stuck with me. Like, dude, this guy believes in me. Like I'm gonna do it. Like I can do it. So a lot of the stars aligned.
Bro, it literally, that gave me goosebumps to hear the way that you talked about Carlos then. It's like, you're right, man. Like that doesn't get spoken about enough. And to hear that whole story, the whole context of where you're at Yamaha and the way that that program was set up, and then you just walk in, like you probably didn't feel good in yourself as like a racer and as a rider, and there was probably still like a hangover of self-doubt, even though you got that right. And like imposter syndrome is a real thing, and I mean not saying that you had that, but I mean that it's a real thing to be somewhere and to like know what's capable in that place, and then have that, that pressure of like coming off 2 just crazy bad years, and then you walk in and you've got this guy that instantly it's like he has no knowledge of those past 2 years and is like looking at you as the dude that come off the track beating Jeffrey Herlings. Like that must have actually been massive.
Oh, 100%. And I think, like I said, he's probably the biggest guy when I talk about KTM or anything that like has helped me have the success I have, and still to this day, so it was a blessing in disguise. And yeah, it is crazy to have him. I mean, he'll still bring up races from like 2017 or 2018 that I was in, that I was probably not battling for 9th place, and he knew what happened. And I'm like, how did you know that? Or like, how do you remember even like? So it's like I said, he had a lot of confidence and belief in me from the word go, and that's where I'm a big believer. Like on a team, you got to trust in your team, but one person. Like on those times where it's you're 50-50, or if it's like a championship night and you need someone to make a bike setup decision or setup or what tire, like. He's been my guy from day one, and there's been plenty of nights where I'll disagree with him and go, you know what? No, I think you're wrong. And he'll do it his way anyway without telling me. And I'm like, really? Thank God we did what you did, So like I said, for me, he's the one guy that he's underappreciated, from not only myself, but from I shouldn't say underappreciated, but like under noticed.
It's unknown, yeah.
And so like he helped me a lot, and like I said, even those first days at KTM, like I didn't just gel with the bike right away. Dude, I would get my ass kicked during boot camp. Like, I mean, it went from like me going there, hey, it's cool, you're here, to where like, okay, now Jason's riding, Marv's riding, Coop, you're 2 seconds off the pace. Like, it's not only November now, like we're a few weeks before Anaheim, like what's going on, And like I said, there wasn't a lot of pressure at that point to be winning races, but it was still like, bro, like you got to at least top 10, like you got to do
like
something.
Right now you're getting lapped.
Yeah, you're getting lapped basically. So it wasn't easy, but like you said, something clicked. Like I took a few days off for Christmas and just kind of reset. And then from that day on, like a week before Anaheim, it felt good. We found a setting, and it's like everything just lined up perfectly. And, I look back 2019, like it was a mutter at the first one, and
yeah, I
rode great though. Like fell in the first turn, came back to fifth, like had I think the fastest time of the night, and I was like, man, I'm good. Like I'm gonna be in the podium, and like this is gonna be a great year. And then Phoenix the next weekend, I literally straight up got 10th, and I'm like, yeah, maybe I ain't got it. Like I said, you have those doubts, and
yeah.
But that's where I kind of turned it. Like I got 10th, and even though I hadn't won or I hadn't had real success in the 450, I was like, dude, that's unacceptable. Like I'm on a factory team, I'm on the best team, like that's not what you do. You need to get your shit together and turn around, and you need to go do something this weekend. And just so happened that was that Triple Crown in 19 where I ran with Kenny and passed him with the last lap, and there was the pistols, and that was my first win, and went on a tear from there. Like, and that's just how a flip of a switch it happened. And
yeah,
it doesn't happen like that a lot of the times. But I look back and go, man, that was an unbelievable year. It really was.
How much of the rivalry with Kenny, like, because there's personal stuff there. I feel like it's pretty well done now. Like I feel like we don't really see much of it come out these days. But I think that was like I feel like it was almost, I'm trying to figure out like the way to say it. It was almost like he was just in the firing line in a sense, because it's like you guys had this personal history that you had, and then there was like a run-in that you guys had on like Yamaha, Honda, like that kind of deal that you had, and then it was almost like you needed to have this turning point in your career, and he was a guy that was doing well, and it almost seemed like there was extra motivation on top to beat him, and it was like you kind of used that as fuel, and maybe it come across like it was a lot more personal than it was, because it's like nowadays it's like done, but it was like in that moment, needing to win, needing to turn your career around, probably feeling like you needed to like turn your life around in a sense. It seemed like he was just in the firing line. Like there was like the perfect storm where he just fucking copped like the full fury of Cooper Webb.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it was both. Like it was pretty personal, in the sense of like, we obviously, like you said, had some run-ins and some stuff happen in our lives and whatever, but I took it very personal, and this is something I've never shared, and so you heard it here first on Gypsy Tales, but it was 2017. He had his, gnarly crash, was banged up, and no one knew if he was going to race again, and it was a really scary time. And I think that's the other thing, that I have tremendous amount of respect for Kenny and what he's done and what he still continues to do, and even come back from that crash. And
100%.
Like you said, I think it was a little bit of like bad timing that me and him were rivals and we were both going for the championship. That's just how it worked out. But what kind of started it all for me was 2017, like I said. It was like midway through the summer, and I think he had kind of made the decision to come back to racing. And was going to come back for the 2018 season, and I was getting smoked. Like, it is what it is. And I remember on Instagram, he's an icon, right? And he'd have all these comments, and someone just randomly put on his, I think it was a random post, like, hey, when do you think Webb will find his speed on the 450? And I mean, he had like 7,000 comments, and he replied to one person, and it was that person, and he said, never, he's shit. So I decided from that day forward, if I ever got my shit together, Kenny would never beat me again, ever. And that's why I race him the way I race him.
Dude, I mean, I had no idea that it came down to that one comment. Man, that, like, all right, let's backtrack an hour ago into this conversation. When you say that shit talking can go super wrong, that's like one example of poking the bear and making the wrong bear pissed off.
Yeah, no, so that's where, like I said, there was a lot of other things, but that was like, I don't know, like, it just was one of those things. Like, dude, I was friends with Kenny, and I never felt like I did anything, and it was just like, and I'm sure, unfortunately, like, when you're injured and you're sidelined and whatever, you do have some bitter thoughts, and I'm sure he honestly meant nothing by it, or probably doesn't even remember it, but for whatever reason, that was just the one thing that stuck in my head. I thought about it for 2 years, and so when I put myself in a position to battle with him again and race him and beat him at that first, Triple Crown, it was like, it was on. From that day forth, like, I knew I could beat him, and like I said, in my mind, he was never going to beat me again, and if I could have anything to do with it, Yeah. So, like you said, you're I don't know, it doesn't work that way for everyone, but that was just something that for me stuck with me. That was like, you know what? I'm going to, at all costs, if I'm ever in a position to actually beat Ken Roczen, once I do it, it's on. Like, it is literally on. So, and like I said, now I feel like we've kind of gotten over that. And like I said, I have a huge amount of respect for him. And, I'd say hello and greet him every time I can. And he's a good dude. It's just, like you said, unfortunately, maybe I just am messed up in the head, and that's what I had to go to have that success. And it was tough because, I mean, he's by far the fan favorite. I mean, I definitely got, throughout our battles, some hate mail and some death threats and whatever, but you just shrug that stuff off and go for gold.
You just bodied him so many times too. Like, it was brutal to watch, bro. Like, I mean, I know both you guys, and like, I definitely made it a point to just like never talk about any of like the actual personal shit, because it just, but we don't like, we just don't need it, I think that there's like other stories to follow, but like, in my head, I thought it was way more personal than an Instagram comment.
No, that's it. Like, that's literally it.
I love it.
And so yeah, I mean, like I said, but that's what, like, I feed off of, and
yeah.
I need, I need like we talked about earlier, I need a reason to bust my ass. Obviously, I have plenty of reasons, but like, you give me a cherry on top, or you give me just that added 10%, and that's where I tap into that area of focus, or whatever you want to call it, that I get the absolute most out of myself.
Dude, what was it like to just go through, like, that 29 season especially? Like, you must have just felt like a fucking king too. Like, because you were just bodying Kenny, like, on so many occasions. It felt unfair. It was,
I mean, it didn't happen all the time, but it was something where, like I said, I knew, and I think it's like you said, once it happened once or twice, it was like, it was almost a pattern. And I think it's almost similar to like what's happening now, or whatever, like you can say with Chase, but it happened to where, like, it was almost like a sense of, he knew I was coming no matter what. And
didn't matter where you were.
Whether it was
could not take
what the circumstances were, for sure. And I think there's a lot of pressure in that, and a lot of like for him wanting to not have that happen so bad that it ends up happening, if that makes sense. You know, 100%. And if it's like, if it was Eli, he's not even thinking about it. But because it was me and because it had happened, or maybe it was our rivalry or whatever, it was like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit type deal. And that's what I believe. And maybe he would think differently, but I just knew, like, and like I said, I was willing to, I'd have a heart attack or puke in my helmet physically to make it happen. I didn't care. And I think that was maybe the difference of why it happened more so than not.
Do you feel like there is, so like you mentioned Chase, like, do you feel like there is an element of that this year with him where because, dude, we don't put enough importance on the stories that we tell ourselves. And it's like, because you don't choose your thoughts, bro. And you don't choose when someone says something, you don't choose the way that the first thing that pops into your head, you know? And it's like, there is a narrative now around Chase. And actually, I was like, I felt real bad for Chase the night that Ricky and James were in the booth together and he had that crash. Like, I feel like they really went in on him there. And I get that they've got the perspective as racers, but like, if that kind of hurt a little bit to listen to as a fan, not just of like Chase, but the sport in general a little bit, I was like, fuck, like that's kind of heavy to go that hard. I mean, you can make the argument, and they'll make the argument that it was like, it was factual, you know? But it's like, do you think that now, like, there'd have to be that belief in himself, and it's almost like he's racing for that not to happen now, as opposed to like just racing to win and enjoying those moments out front, like those moments where you're 4, 5, 6, 7 seconds ahead in a main event on a 450 class of the most stacked field ever. There probably should be some of the most enjoyable moments of your life, but like for Chase, that's probably not the case, man. And like, that must be really hard to deal with.
Yeah, you know, I think for sure, I know what race you're talking about, and it's tough, but I think it's tough for all of us, right? We do one wrong thing and we have millions of people watching us, and unfortunately I think that's the beauty of the sport, and it's great that people have access to us, but you make one wrong thing and you do have every couch surfer in America saying, oh, why do you do that, or you should have done this, or you should have done that. So it's tough, and who knows what the reason is. You know, I think only he can truthfully answer that. We can all sit here and have our beliefs or reasons or why, but he's the only one that's going to know what the real reason is. But yeah, I mean, it's a tough sport, man. It's one of those, like you said, it can eat you alive and spit you out. And I think it just shows how much focus that you do have to have. And it's what I go back to. It's not just speed. It's not just bike setup. It's not just logging the laps. Like, there is so much that goes into winning a 450 main event. And it's why it's, in my opinion, the hardest sport in the world, and why you just never know what to expect, and you can never count anyone out, and you can never settle, and you can never go, you know what, I got this, because until that checkered flag happens, you see it a lot. Like, you don't know what can happen. So yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to say or comment on it, but I think at the end of the day, he's the only one that's going to know what those reasons are, and what he does with that is what he does with it.
Yeah, it's funny, like, you know, you do get every armchair, you know, factory rider come out, but I think that was kind of the thing with the Ricky and James thing, is like, they're probably the only two dudes that like could have gone that hard on him. You know, because like, they're the exact opposite of armchair guys, and it's almost just like, oh, just because you could go, like, just because you're the guys that can go that hard doesn't mean that you should, because like, that's the one argument. It's like, they're unfuckwithable when it comes to that. It's like they literally can say whatever they want when it comes to commenting on a dude out front in a Supercross race.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's I think it's tough to be an analysis, man. It really
100%.
is, and especially a commentator, and for those two especially that have, like Ricky, as the greatest of all time. So we are all lesser than him no matter which way you want to slice it. And same with James. Like, it don't matter how many more wins we get or I get or whatever, like, I won't ever be those two. So I think it is tough to get analyzed, but it's, I think for them, they're being honest and being great in the sense of giving the fans what perspective they see, what a real perspective is, because there's also announcers or guys that maybe don't know the sport that would say, oh, yeah, maybe they want crashes to happen because it's more excitement or whatever. And so, like I said, I think for me, one thing I learned a long time ago is you don't listen to what media says. Sorry, Chase. Yeah. But
hey, I know I don't mean shit.
Yeah, you gotta block that out, and you gotta block out what people think of you, and you gotta just do you. At the end of the day, and that's where, like I said, I use it a little bit differently, where if someone, or I do listen every once in a while, I use that as motivation to prove them wrong. And I think that's the only really way you can go about that situation.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It seems like when you I guess we've been talking about rivalries a bit, and it seems like Eli is the enigma of, it's almost like he's unfuckwithable in a sense. And it's almost like no one even bothers, because I think Bosch is probably the only dude that can piss him off. But it's like, it just seems like mind games don't really work on him. It's like he's just going to do what he's going to do, whether you try fuck with him or you don't. Like the Eli that shows up on Saturday night is going to get the result he's going to get.
Yeah, no, and he's tough. Like I've tried everything, to be honest. Like I remember 2020, it was the Salt Lake rounds where we did them all, and it was COVID year, and you could hear a pin drop, and I did the sight lap, and same kind of thing. I was feeling good, and I was lined up next to him, and I just said, I can't remember exactly the wording, but I was like, hey, MFer, I hope you're ready for a battle. And he looked at me and then just looked right back where he was looking. We started our bike, and dude, he started like 20th and went through the pack, caught everyone, caught me, and I won by a hair. Like, had I not hole shotted and been out front by myself, like, dude would have won. And I remember after that, like, dude, this dude's gnarly. Like, I would have, even if someone said that to me, I would have been like, whoa, like, it would have thrown me off. And same thing, like, you can try to ride him aggressive and he'll ride you back aggressive. You can try to pass him quick or pass him late, and he's by far my biggest competitor. And like you said, he has all the ingredients. And I do think now, even on the mental side, I mean, obviously earlier in his career, I think he did struggle a little bit with, cracking or whatever you want to call it. But now he's so experienced and has won so much that, like I talked about earlier in the pod, for him to win another Supercross championship, does he want to? Absolutely. But is it a necessity? No. He's won plenty. He's earned all the money. He's a legend in our sport. So, sure, we're both trying our absolute hardest to do this, but I think that's the mentality that we both have, and it's hard to beat someone that truly doesn't care what the outcome is, if that makes sense.
Dude, it makes total sense, and it's not, I don't think that's like he gets enough credit for that, maybe. That it's like he's so just down. Like, you never see like desperation with him, and like, it's like what you were saying before about with Kenny not wanting to lose to you at times, or like you could feel it watching the race that he was like worried where you're at. Like, it's such a powerful position to be in that Eli's in, where it's like he genuinely doesn't care, bro. Like, he's chilling, and it's underrated.
No, he's for sure very underrated, and like you said, he has all those it factors. He has the speed, he has the fitness, he has the mental strength, he has all those things. So that's what makes him so gnarly. And then he's just his own, I'd say, quirky self. Like, you don't hear from him. He's no drama. He's very to himself. You don't know what he really does, and that's just how he operates. Doesn't have many friends within the industry and is under the limelight, in my opinion, and just does his work. And whether it's a first or an eighth like at Indy, like, he's pretty much the same personality. So like you said, a lot of respect to him. And I mean, he's climbing up the win list. And I mean, like I said, whatever the outcome is of this championship, I know that I battled one of the gnarliest dudes to ever throw a leg over a motorcycle. And that's why I can say, like, how stoked I am to be in this position, and like, I thrive in these opportunities, and to have it with him is super special. And I was talking about it in the media at some point, like, in 19 we battled a little bit, but he had a few off races, and then like 20, same kind of thing, we battled a little bit, but he was more dominant that year. 21, he, for whatever reason, had his struggles and really wasn't there. I think he only won like 1 or 2 races that year, and then last year I had my struggles. So like, we've never had a head-to-head truly me and Eli championship like this one has been. And so I think that's what, as a fan, like you said, in Supercross at the moment, it's what everyone wanted, as well as all the other guys that have been involved too. So I think it's cool. We're both the guys that have 2, and yeah, we'll see who gets the 3 first, I guess.
Yeah, it seriously just is like, may the best man win at this point too, which is just super cool. Like, that's such a, I mean, I'm sure it's a cool position for you to be in, but it's also just so rad for fans to be able to, like, normally by this point in the season, like, everyone's kind of over it. It's like, for us in Australia, it's like Sunday mornings where, you get up in the morning and you don't look at Instagram, or you don't whatever. Like, well, actually in Australia, you can pretty much watch it live. Over here at the moment, like, I have to like not look at my phone and shit. But it's like, by this point in the season, we're just pretty much going riding on Sunday mornings.
Yeah.
We're not all sitting around the couch, but it's like, dude, this year it's just, you cannot miss a race. Like, I'm trying to get up as soon as possible so that I see it, and I just don't remember that for a long time.
No, I'm with you, and I think even as a racer, you don't know who's going to show up that weekend. Like, you really don't. I mean, like what AP did in Detroit, like, you couldn't have scripted that. No one expected that. No, like, I'm with the dude every day. I didn't expect it. So I think that's where we're at, or Kenny winning on the Suzuki, or like, Jason can show up, or Bam. Like, every weekend is something you don't know what's going to happen. And I think from a fan's perspective, it's been an amazing series. And even for us racers, it's like, you can't settle, and I think even like your point there, I've been in this position where by this point in time, even your competitors, they know, what, hey, this weekend I'm going to get between 3rd and 8th, like the title guys are coming, like, yeah, we'll put up a little bit of a fight, but they're probably going to go 1 and 2 or whatever the case is. And it's so far opposite of that this year that it's not easy. Like, it's not freaking easy. So that's what's made it cool. And even like, I look at last year, like at this, I think it was when Jason and all of us had a bad round at Detroit. I think Eli had like he had like a 30-something point lead just after that night. And it was just like, oh man, this is boring. And even in mine in 21, like I said, at Atlanta, me and Kenny were quite close, but like, it was still like a 12 to 17 point window the whole week we were there. So it's like, yeah, anything could happen, but once again, he would pretty much have to win out the series, and me, even if I got second, I was in a position to still wrap it. So like, it's not like now. I mean, like you said, I think the last time I think of this is the Stu and Chad and Ricky days, where it went to the Vegas, whatever year that was, like 06. This close and stuff. So a lot of racing left, but it's definitely getting crunch time, and yeah, I'm excited. And I think the cool thing about it too is we're gonna get different tracks. You know, we got a Triple Crown at Glendale where it's super hard packed.
Yeah.
Then we go to the Speedway style at Atlanta. That's, you don't know what you're gonna get. Then we go back to an open stadium in Nashville where we haven't raced in a few years. You don't know what the dirt's gonna be. We haven't been, and then back to New York where weather and terrain is always treacherous, and then Denver, Salt Lake where they're at altitude, but they can both be different too. So that's what I think's cool. Like we started this series where it's out west, and you know, okay, tracks are gonna be pretty much similar, and then we go east, and you know they're gonna be tighter stadiums and pretty similar to where these last few and even these next few are gonna be a lot different. And I actually applaud Supercross this year alone. I do feel like all our tracks every weekend are the most different they've ever been. You know, they almost feel like different builds every weekend, which has been really cool.
I was actually going to ask about what you think about the series in general, because I mean last year it's crazy to watch the change in 12 months of like the whole World Supercross thing came in, and that felt like it really shook the tree in a pretty big way. It was like however it pans out, it was like the first real like, oh shit, like there might be something else on the horizon. And then whether it was as a direct result of that or it's been in the pipeline for ages, I guess at this point, like who really cares? But it's like Supercross made some changes, and even like you said, just down to the daily grind of like the tracks being different. And I feel like they've got 250 guys walking down in the opening ceremonies now, and like the whole playoff thing, and then I guess a mix of just like we've got maybe the most talent that we've ever had. Like it really does feel like 2023 has just been like across the board an epic year for Supercross. Even like, dude, I mean, when I started this podcast, there was like Pulp was always like filmed his podcast, but like there was never like a big YouTube thing of like the sport. And then we come in, everyone's talking shit on me with like the clickbait and everything, but it's like now every channel is like that, and there's so many new people that are like commenting on the sport. Like there's a completely different landscape. So it's like, I don't know, it really feels like. So, and dude, the stadiums are being packed.
Yeah,
like people are fucking in on Supercross right now. Like, I don't know, what's your thoughts on just the 2023, like the way things have changed, the way things have gone? Like, does it feel different for you guys even?
It does. I feel this year was a start of evolution, to be honest. You know, and I think, like you said, with the World Supercross thing, competition's good. You know, no matter
for real
what your goal is or what the outcome will be from it, competition's great for anything and any athlete and any sport. So I think that is awesome, you know, to have competition. And like you said, I do think getting the TV situation figured out was great for our sport. Like knowing, hey, when I tune into Supercross, motocross, it's going to be on NBC. It's going to be a part of that program. Like me taking the summer off, I didn't even watch half the nationals because I didn't even know what channel they were on, you know? So I think that's something that helped. And then like you said, great racing is what ultimately is going to bring fans, and that's exactly what we've had. But I do think now the platform, whether it's social media or YouTube, and just how much our sport is growing in the sense of there's change, you know, and there's evolution, and there's different fan groups, and there's different reasons to watch. And I do think great racing is because of that. But like you said, from our perspective, the tracks have been different. You know, the purse has gone up a little bit. The playoff stuff, no one really knows what it's going to consist of. But you know what? It's new. It's something exciting. It's something new that, as a racer now, it's a big purse that I'm excited for. I'm excited for something just new. And and I think that all of that did kind of transpire maybe from the World Supercross thing, and even from that platform, like the sky's the limit for that series too. So I think for motorcycling and even Supercross as a whole, like it's looking good, man. And I'm excited just to see where it goes and see how it does grow and what the next step is. But like I said, as a racer, it's been great. But even just being a fan of the sport and wanting to grow the sport, it really has been good. And I think, I'm excited to see where it ends up.
Did the whole playoff thing play into you deciding to do outdoors this year?
Yes and no. Yes and no. I mean, it was something that I felt like where I was in my career last year, like I talked about a lot on other stuff, I was pretty burnt out, and that was a change that I needed to step away from Eldon, and that was a big reason why I did it. And I think for me, doing Supercross only last year gave me a complete reset. It gave me everything that I felt I needed mentally, physically, with the bike, with the program. It was what I needed. And I mean, I do think it's not a secret, like Supercross only is something that would strengthen the amount of years that you're able to give.
Yeah, for sure.
Meaning you could race like Brayton until you're well into your 30s. But with that being said, I would like to have better outdoor results and have better outdoor career than maybe I have had in the 450 class. So, I'm a businessman, and I think sometimes you got to make the best decision for you and your family. And last year, it's what made sense for me to get back to what I felt like I needed to be competitive for 2023. And now I feel like I'm competitive. So, the playoffs definitely help. Any points you get outdoors are going to be huge in the big purse that's up for grab at the end of the year, and another championship, whatever they're calling it, like Supercross, motocross, and then the combined. So I do think it's like I said, from a racing standpoint, it's cool because it's something new. But I mean, at the end of the day, for my family and my business earnings, it's a great potential there too.
Yeah. 2022 was obviously like a hard one for you to go through, like with the bike and then the team stuff. Like, how much does that take a toll as well when like it's just like not smooth sailing in the way that you kind of like think it should be, in a sense?
Yeah, it is tough. Like you said, it's not always rainbows and butterflies on any of these teams. And I get paid a lot of money to go and win. And when you're not doing that, it's fair to not be treated with open arms, in my opinion. So, like I said, I got tough skin, so it doesn't bother me too much. I think the biggest thing was, like I said, that it was a combination of me being burnt out and a combination of me not being able to ride my motorcycle to anywhere close to my ability because of just comfort was bottom line, So when I think a little bit of it was like they felt like I was out of shape, and I can't disagree there. I definitely wasn't in the best shape of what I could have been, and I definitely regret some of that, like not putting my best foot forward. But like I said, I think even if I'm at Eldon's the whole time, I don't change anything. I think last year with the same kind of things, with the parts being late with COVID, like we didn't have development that we should have just because we simply don't have supply and demand. I still don't think I have a great year, So
yeah, like even if you are in shape. Yeah,
it was just something where I could not ride the motorcycle to any capacity of my ability. And I think it got a little bit better. Like I got on the podium, a few rounds in a row, and then same kind of thing. Then that's when I went to Detroit and had a bonehead move and, like tripled out or whatever I did, and me and Chase collided, and that's when I broke my hand and hit my head pretty good. So it was just one of those years, like you said, that nothing really gelled. And obviously from the team standpoint, I get it. It's I'm a big investment, and I wasn't near the return. I do think for me it was good to, like I said, have a complete reset, get healthy, and then get my love of the sport back. I mean, last year I absolutely hated it. Like I really did. Like I was burnt out, and I think, like I said, with the pressure of winning and understanding, like now I know how to deal with that. I think after 21 I didn't really, because of certain things, but regardless, I hated showing up to the track. I hated training. I hated racing. I hated even being around a stadium or being in front of fans. And I shouldn't say hated because it's a strong word, but it become such a job and such like I didn't enjoy it. And it was good for me to literally get the love of competing back, the love of riding my dirt bike, why I grew up doing what I did. Like that's what my summer consisted of, was riding any KTM I felt like riding, 2-stroke, 4-stroke, woods bike, moto, supercross, no real set training, no set plan, go ride your dirt bike because you want to. Yeah. And it was the greatest thing that I could have ever done. And going to a local track and seeing the impact that I had on that moto community and on a 5-year-old kid that's getting into riding, like that's what made my love come back, you know. And when you're focused every weekend, Saturday on racing, it's hard to appreciate the fans. But seeing like a 5-year-old kid come up to me and tell me, hey, I got into riding and my family got into moto because of you, like it hits your heart. It really does. And like I said, I think it was crazy when I brought it up to KTM about taking the summer off, but it was the best thing I could have done by far. And it obviously also gave us a heads up and us all summer to develop the Supercross bike that I feel like we have now. So, you know, like I said, highs and lows, man. You got to ride the wave. And like I said, I feel like now because of last summer, I'm in the best headspace I've ever been in. I'm the most motivated I've ever been. And I feel like I now have another minimum 3 years to be this version of myself.
Yeah, dude, it is so cool to, like, I remember seeing you doing the wood stuff and going to local tracks and just showing up and racing, you know, no-name dudes. Like, that's what I love about racing. Like, everyone else that's not there on that Saturday night has just taken their bike back from their local track and just finished washing it, drinking a beer with their buddies. Like, that is moto, you know. Like what you guys do is just like the tip of this iceberg that is two wheels and moto. And it's like the sport gets so refined and it gets so sharpened to like the tip of that spear that you can kind of just like lose perspective, and it hits different, right? Like when there's a fan that's just parked next to you at a track and they're like cooking food and they're like asking if you've got some chain lube they can borrow.
Yeah.
Like that, it's like that's different than a fan in an autograph line and you've got your gloves on because you don't want to get any like germs and get sick. And it's like, it's such a autonomous process when you're in those stadiums, and it's like you interact, those fan interactions after a 10-year career like probably don't feel as real as going to the track and like having someone borrow your chain lube, you know. Like I think it's pretty underrated to experience those things again, and I could really see how that would bring the love back. Yeah, no, and you're 100% right, like you said. And I think for me, I got so addicted to winning, and granted, that's still my personality and why I race. You know, the competitive side is 1,000,000% why I do what I do. You're still a psycho. But when I wasn't able to do that last year, like it wrecked me mentally. You know, like yeah. No matter what I did physically, or no matter how tough I was or how gritty I was, I could not win. You know, no matter what. The gap. Yeah, so I was dark. So like I said, for me to like you said, go back to it's like finding yourself, you know, as crazy as it sounds, but as a racer, like, you know what?
why did I do what I'm doing? Why do I put my body through hell and eat like a, rabbit for 12 months out of the year? Like, why is that? And I think this summer was the perfect example. Like you said, man, to go ride, throw some whips, like ride with your buddies and just have a guy you've never met before. And you guys talk about, the state of North Carolina or the tracks or whatever. Like, you're not talking about setup or training or all the stuff that we talk about 9 months out of the year. You're having genuine conversation with someone you just met, and for that person, obviously be a fan, but then treat me with that level of respect of just treating me like a normal racer or rider that was out for a Tuesday night practice. It was, you can't really explain it. And I honestly would recommend it to anyone that, and it's hard, you can't really do it, but like Eli or these guys, like, I look at Villo now, like he loves, in my opinion, doing what he's doing now because of what you just said. He's able to enjoy riding his dirt bikes. He's enjoying the fans. He's enjoying loading up his motorcycle and, like you said, going riding with his buddy and maybe having a beer and washing his own bike. Like you said, that's why we did it, and that's, as a kid, what I did. And growing up, going to these amateur races, and you make lifetime relationships with people from the track, and it was super special. And then, like I said, having the persona that I had to bring to the kids, I made kids' lives just by riding with them for 2 or 3 turns. Like, now that I have a daughter, it's just like, man, imagine her seeing her idol and spending 5 minutes with him or her, whoever it may be. Like, it hits diff. It really does. And it brings you a sense of gratitude. And, like, you know what? Championships aside, that meant more to me than any win or whatever. Like, you know what? That's what maybe I was put on this earth to do, was impact people's lives. And I hope that I can do that to the best of my ability.
Yeah, man, I think it's cool, and like, you see the Cooper Webb that we've got this year, and it's like, oh, we were in Barcelona, and like, yeah, you were fucking over it. Like, it was just, that was like May last year. That was like right after the season, just not a good place to be, and it's like, is part of you like, I'm glad that you're back and that you're doing what you're doing now, but is part of you like super bummed that you didn't win while you were not on Alden's program? That it was like, right, back to Alden's, motherfucker, and then you start winning again. That must suck.
It's all right, man. Like I said, it's whatever works, right? And not saying it worked or it didn't, but that's where I do feel like I'm the type, like, I don't care if it was he said, she said, like, whatever gets the result, right? Like, once again, I don't care. If you tell me to do 1,000 push-ups a day and that'll make you win a Supercross championship, that's what I'm going to do. So, do I regret maybe not doing as much as I could have away from Eldon's? For sure. But do I regret leaving? No, because I needed a change and I needed to do those things. And I appreciate Eldon for everything he has done for me and continues to do. And that's where we had enough respect for each other I came back and we shook hands and we moved forward. And it was from day one, how do we win a championship? So I'm maybe different, like, in the fact of whatever it takes. Like, sure, I like proving people wrong, but like, it is what it is, if I do something and it doesn't work out, you learn, it's not like, I wish I would have done this, or man, I should have won not with Eldon. Like, it don't matter, like, it is what it is.
'Cause, man, like, you definitely, there's a level of intensity that you just can't keep up, man. Like, people aren't robots, and there's nothing, I guess it's like you can't force something that's not there, in a sense. And if if you're burnt out, and if you've got to take that year, and it's like you've won 2 titles at KTM, and then it's like you take that 1 year of not winning, but then you get it done the following year, it's like that's net positive for KTM.
For
like
sure.
That's a return on investment. And it's like, I think sometimes maybe there's like a weird perspective in the industry, and maybe guys like Ricky and James just set the bar so high that it's like, and Dunge, that it's like, no, you win, and then when you don't win, you're done. And maybe that's like a bit of a fucked up narrative that we've kind of got in this sport. But it's like, let's say you do win this title, then it's like you win 2, take 1 to, recoup and regather, and then you come back and win another. And it's like, that's still, even though you were still getting paid millions of dollars on that year that you were off, like you still return that investment with 3 championships in 4 years. Yeah,
no, and that's, like you said, that's what I had to do, and I think had I, I wouldn't have never done that, but had I retired after last year, then I probably don't sleep at night the rest of my career, knowing that like I went out 50% of what I used to be, so like I think that's also a little bit of the thinking, besides like you said with Ricky and those guys, and for me, like you were addicted to winning, like we hate to lose. And so you do it year after year after year, and I don't blame them. Like they just wanted to say, you know what, I went out on top, I won. I can't blame them, but I do think I hear stuff now where I've heard Villo said like, man, maybe if I switch teams or switch my program, it would have made me go longer. But you're in the moment, you don't want to make those changes. And that's what I told Eldon straight up. Like it was nothing that he did directly. It's just like I had done the same thing for 4 years, and I needed a change, was literally the bottom line, or I was going to retire. And I felt like I would have regret retiring more than I would have regretted changing. Yeah. If that makes sense. And I think to me it does. And whether it worked out or not, which obviously it didn't, and now I am back with them. So,
but it didn't in
2022. Even if I don't win this championship right now, it will. Like I could go out knowing in 2023 I gave it my all, whether championship or not. Like I am back, and I am back to a best version of myself, and I am battling one of the gnarliest dudes to ever throw a leg over a motorcycle. So, like you said, when you put it in perspective over these bundle of years, it does make sense, and the ROI on that does make sense. But that's racing. Every year it changes, and that's why you got to evolve and you got to stay in it, and it's not easy. Like to win championship after championship after championship, it's a lot of sacrifice, and it's a lot of work, and it's not the most fun thing. So, like I said, for me to have a summer of 3 or 4 months of enjoying life and having fun and seeing what it would be like to not race, and then aside from all the other things I learned, it was a necessity. It was exactly what I needed, and like I said, I feel like I'm set now for another 3 to 4 years, and see what happens.
Yeah, and I think that's probably like the coolest part to come out of it. And it's funny, like we're all still gathering so much data in a sense of like what your career can be and what your like how this shit can play out. Like even Eli switching from Yamaha from Cowie to Yamaha, it's like Villo would have never had that perspective had Eli not done that. Like Villo was literally that. Like he'd won the championships, got the bread, and then was like, well, fuck, no one just switches teams, the way that like I've just won all these championships in a row. Like, okay, that's it. But then it's like you now get that data from Eli. And then now
nor was no one probably willing to pay him what he made at Cowie too, and you got to think about that. Like, am I going to go switch a team and make less money? And no,
true,
but like you said, it is perspective too. Like now he sees what Eli's did and was like, oh man, maybe I should have done that. But at the end of the day, I think those guys, like, they don't have regrets in the sense of they achieved a lot. Could they have achieved a lot more? Probably so. But I compare it to like Michael Jordan. He won 4 championships, retired. He could, had he not come back, he would be known as winning, 4 championships. But he had a break. He re-solidified himself. He got his mental, physical body in order and came back and
the
is
hunger.
Now probably the best athlete, in the conversation of best athletes, most winning as 6 titles, sorry, excuse me. I'm thinking of the GOAT Tom, but either way, that's what I feel like I had, and obviously I can't compare myself by any means to Michael Jordan, but
talk your shit, bro. Talk your shit.
I joke around and say I retired last year and I came back this year.
Well, dude, look at there's actually, you could go through a crazy list of guys like Kelly Slater, man. I think Kelly Slater won I'm not the biggest surfing diehard, but it's I think he won 5 or 6 and then fully retired years away and then came back because Andy Irons was killing it and was okay, there's a guy I want to beat that dude. And now he's a 10-time or 11-time world champion. The guy won Pipeline at fucking 50 years. Are you serious, bro?
Yeah, and it's crazy, man. Like I said, I think you can only maintain the top of any sport for so long. And I don't think it's physically, it's more mentally. It's just, and that's anything. To maintain a certain level of dominance can only last so long until you just can't handle it mentally. So like I said, whatever reason, whether it's retiring or taking a break, and that's what, same thing. I think if Villa would have changed teams, or if, say, he literally took a year off, he would have probably came back and been like, you know what, that was the best thing for me. But you never know, and like we say in our sport, health is key, and all these greats still have that, so there's no handbook, there's no certain way of doing it. As much as our sport nowadays wants to make everything a handbook and this is what you do from age 16 to 30, it's not the case. No matter how hard people try, every guy is different, every guy has their own needs, and every guy's going to perform to a different level and respond to things differently,
Yeah, and I think that's that's kind of the message that ultimately I'm trying to get at is the sport has become so formulaic to where it's you have to do it this way, this way, this way, give us your 3 titles and then you're done. Or you've got to win 3 lights titles in a row or you ain't going to be shit. And it's just we kind of, and that's why I think for you to do what you did, for Eli to do what he did, you guys kind of are rewriting the book in a sense. And it's I hope it gives you guys more freedom in a sense, because it's you almost had to fight tooth and nail. It hurt the relationship in a lot of ways to want to do what you did, but then it's going to play out as a net positive. And it's if people had a little bit less rigidity around their idea of exactly what needs to happen, then maybe you'd get better athletes, you'd get happier athletes, you'd get longer careers, you'd get more potential winners. I just feel it could be an overall kind of healthier deal,
Yeah, no doubt. And that's where I think you just said it. You have to be open to change. And it's so easy to say, man, Ricky did it this way, James did it this way, and even within teams now, I see it all the time with the amateurs or the 250 programs, and it's all right, we're all going to stick you in this box. And it may work. It may work 80% of the time, and that might be good enough for a manufacturer or for these teams to go, okay, that was what we were hoping for. But like you said, when you do get these guys that can win championships on the 250 or 450 level, it's going to be done differently. It might be year 1, it might be year 3, and it might be in due time, and it might not. Everyone's career is going to be different, and I do think to an extent you do have to have someone in your corner holding you accountable and telling you what's wrong or what's right or what a good perspective is. But at the same time, you do have to trust the athlete and what they've gone through and what they know does simply work for them. And if you don't, like you said, that relationship can unmingle a lot of things, and I think, like you said, even with, like, when I look at Eli, like, I feel like with him and Kawasaki, it was nothing really directly that happened that maybe why he wanted to change, or that last year he didn't have the results that he did 2 years before. It was just maybe, like you said, you need, as a relationship, it has to be 50-50, whether it's marriage, your spouse, racing, like, and sometimes it can be flip-sided. And in our sport, I do think it's tough to be your own athlete and your own person and make those decisions because of how much money is being spent on you. So it's a fine line. It really is tough. But like you said, I do hope that it does get to a point, and I think maybe certain teams do it better than others, where they do listen to the rider and their wants, but within respect, would hope that when they ask the rider to do something or something out of the rider, that they get the same in return. And that's fair, right?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. The before you mentioned the race with Herlings at WW Ranch, where does that rank as one of,
well, like, Charlotte, WW, I was Indonesia.
Sorry, Charlotte. Where does that rank on your all-time kind of wins, especially like being in North Carolina as well?
Yeah, number one. Like,
really, that's the number
to
one?
This day, like, did I still have dreams of it? Like, it's like a wet dream. But no, it was, man. It really was awesome, and that's where we actually since then have become friends, and like we talk quite a bit just from that.
He's a good dude, huh?
Yeah, he's awesome, and the way we think is so similar. It's scary, but
yeah.
For me, it was like, at that time, I truly felt on a 250 unbelievable. Like, still to this day, probably the fastest I feel like I've gone on a dirt bike, like the most comfortable I've ever been, like just young, cocky, just full savage, I felt. And he was the same way, like the fastest man on the planet. Like, he rode the absolute shit out of a 250F. Like, I don't know, when I watch videos, I'm like, you couldn't ride it any faster. And so for us to square up, and like, I look at it like it was maybe not totally mano-a-mano. Like, he did have a championship to win that weekend, so there was a little bit of pressure there, but he was able to get it after the first moto. So I do feel like maybe it was a little bit of pressure relieved. And yeah, the track was good, but it wasn't like, to be honest, it wasn't the best outdoor track. Like, it was a good track, but it wasn't like, oh, this is the most epic race. But I think it's the closest thing we've had in a long time from like Europe to America's best, mano-a-mano. There's really no pressure for me. Jeffrey won the title. There's no pressure anymore. Like, let's see what can happen. And like, we battled like crazy, and obviously I was able to go 2-1 and him get, he won the first one, I won the second one, and then me get the overall. Like, that was in front of my home crowd. Like, the bleachers were shaking. It was so loud. And that was for an outdoor event, and it was cool, man. It really was cool. And to cap the year, like, I had won Supercross, I had won outdoors, to win that GP. It was just like a really awesome feeling. And to know, like, even now, like, I look at Jeffrey, like, when he's on, he's still the fastest man on the planet on a motocross track. Like, I truly do think that, and like, until we see Eli versus him mano-a-mano, like, that's the closest thing in my era that we'll have to that. So it was pretty cool.
What like went right for you that weekend? Like, you were just, it was just the cherry, like, you were just in the spot of your career. I
think it was confidence, because the funny backstory, sure, right? Yeah, home crowd for 100%. Like, if it wasn't in North Carolina, I may not find that speed and that like raw grit. But it was kind of funny. A little backstory to it was, I had won the national series the weekend before, and I wasn't even supposed to do the GP, but Yamaha had asked me, like, hey, we really want you to do it, And I had told him, I said, hey, I'll do it, but I want my bonuses. And I wasn't going to do it until I got that approved. Well, they didn't approve it until that like Tuesday before. And so I had been, I'm young, I'm 20. I had been celebrating my outdoor title like maybe more than I should have, and missed a few days riding, missed a few days training, and like Swanee and the team were pissed. They were like, look, we gave you, you won on Saturday, like we gave you Saturday night, we gave you Sunday, you knew you were going to race this like GP, like I went until about Tuesday, and they weren't happy. They were actually really pissed. Like I qualified, I think 5th, and Bobby Reagan came up to me and he's like, boy, you smell like a DUI. I'll be all right, Bob. Like, come on. And he's like, this is embarrassing. You make me come all the way down here to the damn North Carolina, and you're riding around in 5th place and like all this stuff. I'm like, damn, dude, like they're right. Like, this ain't good. Like, I might get smoked. And the first moto, like, I actually did ride really good, like led majority of it, and I did get nervous, like I really did. Like, hometown crowd, I didn't know the pace, so I just was going as hard as I could for as long as I could, and then Jeffrey passed me, and I stayed behind him like within a 2 to 3 second window, but like it was everything I had to go that pace, and I was like, man, like obviously it was a good ride, but I would have liked to have beat him. And I knew for the second moto, like same thing, like I just said, like he just won the title, so now he's really gonna send it because there's no real pressure. And I like kind of was mean mugging him on the start, kind of same thing that I typically would do, like trying to get in his head. Like I looked over because it was hot too. I was like, man, you're sweating a lot, like you must be hot, like you tired or what, you celebrate too hard, like. And he's just looking at me like, dude had the wheel on me and cut me hard. And I'm like, came out like 20th, and I'm like, oh man, like this sucks. And I literally had no choice but to just go as fast and as hard as I could, make passes, and I could hear the crowd, like everyone was just going absolutely nuts. And the crowd really was what got me to that next level. And the simple fact of like, Swanee had kind of been in my ear all week telling me that the Euros are better. And I'm like,
really?
All right, time. Like me and Swanee had a good relationship like that. So I was like, I can't let Swanee be right about this. Like, okay, it's all right if Jeffrey beats me, but like not anyone else.
No one else. Yeah.
Once I got in a second, I caught Jeffrey. I'm like, you know what? It's go time. Like I can actually win this thing. So it was pretty cool to look back on. And man, it really was like a special, just like all my friends and family were there in North Carolina, like the only time we've raced there since, and like that area is where I'll grow up and retire in and stuff. So like it's just cool. I'll be probably 80-year-old driving by the speedway and telling my kids and grandkids, man, back in my day, I had the best race over there.
Dude, it's so cool. Yeah, it's rad that you and Jeffrey became friends out of it too, because like knowing you two guys, like you are very similar. Like there's such a savage mentality that gets you through your days,
Yeah, and that's what was cool. Like you said, I think there was instant respect between us both, but we were both the same person. We were a little arrogant, a little cocky, a little savage, like in a good spot, like we're both crushing it. But then to turn around afterwards and like literally shake hands. And then I went to California to get ready for the Nations, and then he had Glen Helen GP after, and he actually messaged me and was like, hey dude, I'm in California. And it was funny, at the time we were both single, and he was like, hey, like, where the chicks at? And I'm like, I don't know, man. But we went to dinner, and then, just became from there on, like we had very similar personalities, interests and stuff. And, we weren't ever really going to ever race each other again. So it was like cool just to chat. And even now, like we talk about a lot of stuff that I think I can't have with someone that hasn't been in that situation or having 100%. A conversation like that. So it's been really cool, and I wish him nothing but the best, and I hope he crushes it and continues to win like he did last weekend, because he hasn't had an easy path either, man. And that's another thing that I feel like we're very similar. Like, you count us out and you're going to regret it. And I think Jeffrey's the same way.
Yeah, man, 100%. And I think have you been watching the GPs this year by any chance?
Yeah. I watched the highlights of the first one, and then Sardinia, I watched that second moto, and yeah, I think he's in a good spot.
What a fucking race that was, bro. Like, I've been running, I'm doing World Vets this year, so I'm fucking
nice, man.
My goal is to have one dirt bike race in my life where I'm fit enough to enjoy it. So I've actually been putting in the Ks. But so I've just been like full old school fanboy right now of get my iPad, put it on the treadmill, and just do 40-minute motos with the GP boys. And dude, 10 minutes to go in that second moto. I'm like putting the speed up on the treadmill as like the race is going. I'm like, what the fuck is happening? He just flipped a switch, literally 10 minutes to go. It's like he got a pit board that said 10 minutes to go, and he just went absolutely psycho, bro.
Yeah, no, it was, and I think it was a pivotal moment, right? I think it was one of those things where he's telling himself he's going to race into shape, and he was out all year, and you have a little bit of doubt, and you're still kind of not sure of yourself. And I just think it was one of those things where, it clicked. And granted, he didn't win the moto, but like, it clicked. It was like, hey, I am Jeffrey Herlings. The bike's good. I'm comfortable. And like you said, turned the switch and just went full sicko. And, obviously you got the overall, which was huge. First win and 100, I think GP it was. So like
100 GP,
super cool, momentum on his side. And like you said, I think he was waiting for that spark maybe by round 4 or 5, but it clicked. Like
he's
said,
doing
10
a
minutes
Cooper
to
Webb
go.
2019.
Yeah, like doesn't even need a build up. Just let's do it. So it was cool to see. I mean, like I said, as a friend of his and as a fan of the GPs especially, and seeing you just, for me, like as a friend of his, like you want to see the best version of him out there, and it was cool to see.
This season in the GPs is a crazy one because you got, like, I don't know how you think about the GPs, but what we've got in Supercross this year, with how stacked it is, that's what the GPs have this year. Like, just a crazy, crazy, crazy level of talent and depth in that 450 class. But to me, it was like interesting because 14 months out with Jeff, and then you've got all these other guys like Prado's in crazy good form, crazy shape, like nailing starts. Those Yamaha boys are on fire. Fevra went the distance with him in 21. So it's like, this is probably the first year where the 450 dudes in the GPs were like, oh, we can actually straight up beat Jeffrey Herlings. Like, this is our chance.
100%.
Like, he's down right now. Like, let's keep him down. But on the flip side, Jeffrey was like, had that crazy sense of urgency that he probably hasn't had in a long time. So it's like it's cool to watch that war, like the back and forwards.
No, for sure. And I think, like you said, and then Tim having his preseason incident, like, everyone was like, hey, this is our chance to win a world title, and like you said, I think the KTM group with Jorge has figured out the bike, and he looks a lot better, and the Yamaha looks really nice, and Fev's back from his injury and stuff. So, and I'm sure, like you said, you miss 14 months, there's a lot of stuff in the back of your mind for Jeffrey, and I think everyone in his corner is telling him, be calm, get through it, collect the points. And like you said, you kind of have to block everyone out and go, I'm going to do what works for me. And like you said, it'll be a great season. I think all the bikes look great, and, we're going to go to different tracks like they always do. And it's a long series, though, for sure. And I think the only thing that was weird for me is the qualifying. I don't know if I'm a big fan of, there should be something, but 10 points is a lot to me for that qualifying race, but it'll definitely play a part, I think. As we see right now, like with Prado still having the red plate, like that'll play into a different strategy than what we're used to. So yeah, it'll be a great season. I'm excited for it, and once Tim gets back too, he'll be, I'm sure, in the mix. So yeah, like you said, motorcycling in general is at a really good spot right now.
Where do you rate, like, in the conversation of like the GPs versus the nationals? Like, where do you rate the GPs right now? They should be better because they do it more.
And speed,
like,
and stuff.
Say that.
Yeah. It's tough. Like, I agree with you. Like, I think, but it's tough because I didn't race nationals last year, but on TV, Chase and Eli last year were on a whole nother level, in my opinion.
It was pretty wild, eh?
I can't imagine anyone going that fast, on an outdoor track. So it's tough. And I think the biggest difference too is, like, I mean, me as a fan, the tracks on the GPs, they don't look fun. Like, I'll be honest, there's like maybe 2 that I would even want to go ride. So that's another thing where you're like, dude, these guys are riding this good on not great tracks. So the perspective is different, and I do think it's tough as well when you have with the U.S. Nationals, heat is a big factor, and it seems like in the GPs that's a rare thing that, where it's a super, super hot race. And yeah, I mean, this conversation, you can go down the rabbit hole till the cows come home. Like, I think you'll never truly know. Like, these guys, the GPs do get a proper boot camp, like how we do in Supercross. That's what they get for outdoors, to get their motos in, get their bikes set up.
The bike style.
But then again, they're traveling all over the world, and they're racing a lot longer. So it's tough. And like I said, our nationals are so different than the GPs. So I don't know if you truly ever will know. I think year to year it'll change personally. Like I said, I think the level is both so high, and it would take Jeffrey coming here for an entire season, which I believe he would be very good and successful, and it would take Eli going to GPs for an entire season, and I believe that he would also be successful. And it'll never happen, no matter which way you slice it. Like, Jeffrey coming here would be the only...
Yeah.
Knowing Jeffrey, like, that would be the only thing that could really tell the tale. But even then, until he did like a full he would have 3 months to get ready for U.S. Nationals.
Yeah.
To where we would have a Supercross Championship. So like I said, you're never mono-y-mono. But with that being said, I do believe Jeffrey, in the span of like the last 10 years, is still known and will be the fastest man on the planet. But I do think Eli Tomac could be the thorn in his side, and you could also argue that with him too. You'll never truly know.
So last question then before we wrap this thing up. So it actually, when me and Jeff started talking about this whole, like, him and Tomac one-on-one thing, so he texts me and goes, dude, I don't give a fuck. I'll do it at Alden's and I'll ride one of Coop's practice bikes. And I just thought it was like a real offhand, like, comment. But, like, you guys are friends, and he probably would. Like,
100%. And that's
one of
like
your practice bikes.
This conversation, I know for a fact, revs him up more than him winning GP or him winning his 100th race this weekend. Like, he wants to be known as the fastest man on the planet, and you're telling him that he's not, essentially, if you're saying Eli Tomac's going to beat him. So I know exactly what you mean. I know where he's coming from, and he's crazy. He'll do whatever. Like, he really would. He would ride a stock bike, knowing him, like, just to prove that point. And that's the kind of crazy he has, and the kind of crazy you gotta have. So I don't doubt it. Like I said, I know what he's capable of, and you tell him he can't do something, or hey, this guy will beat you. He ain't gonna take that lightly, and he's gonna put the hammer down, and that's gonna be probably the fastest you'll ever see him ride a dirt bike ever. Just for that simple topic. And so, man, a lot of respect to Jeffrey. He's a savage.
Does he get it done versus Eli on a one-on-one? Like, what do you think of that concept, and what do you think? So, like, I'll give you an update on it. like where it's at, right? So Jeff is obviously like all in, and then BT gave me Eli's number, and I text Eli like when that podcast first come out, and he was like, "Dude, I'd fully love to make it happen. Like seriously, I'm keen." And
they both would. I mean, knowing Eli, not as much as Jeffrey, but knowing how he is, 100%, it's something that he would not be scared of either.
Yeah. So Jeff's still all in. Eli, I haven't heard from Eli in a bit. There's been a couple unanswered texts, and I ain't gonna triple text, but I'm still hopeful that one day that goes down. And so if it does go down, what's your thoughts? And is it a worthwhile thing to do? And what happens if it does happen? And how should it happen?
We could be here for another 3 hours just talking about this, but. Like I said, timing is key, right? I think timing is key where they're both going to be in a championship hunt at some capacity. Unfortunately, in the U.S., like soon as – I shouldn't say unfortunately, but how it works in the U.S. is as soon as race, Supercross is over, we have outdoors right away that then you're trying to win that championship. And now, same thing. The next weekend, we have – 3 SMX races. That is a lot of money, and for another championship. So to add another race to at least our side, there simply isn't enough time. Like in that month off that we have now, which isn't really even a month off, it's going to end up being 2 weeks off.
Yeah.
The last thing Eli, I would think, is going to want to do is to be ride a dirt bike. He's going to want to go do whatever he wants to in Colorado. So I think timing would be key. I think if you hit him, depending on what he does next year, like if he were to call it, after this year, I think that's where it would have to happen, would be like October or something of this year. Hopefully by then, Jeffrey's done whatever he's done in the GPs, and you're probably going to have to come with some money or something and make it happen. But I think that's realistically one of the only ways that it does truly happen. And then, you got to settle how long is it going to be, what track, where, whatever, which I do think Jeffrey would be more open-minded to wherever, whatever the circumstances. But I think it's a great idea, man. It really is. And, whatever happens, like you said, they're both such bad dudes that it would be cool, but it wouldn't be like a career
definitive thing.
Yeah, like Euros are the best. You could say maybe Jeffrey beat him or whatever, but like you said, you're always going to have two sides or the what ifs or whatever. Like, we just got to honestly respect two legends of the sport and two of the fastest guys in the last 10 years,
I agree. Well, hey, mate, speaking of legends of the sport, you were definitely one of those. And I appreciate it, man. This was a really, really good chat. And been wanting to do this one for a while. Yep. Glad we did it. I hope you enjoyed it.
It was awesome, man. I appreciate all the kind words, and like I said, hope I can motivate or give some kind words to some fans out there, and hopefully they can see the real side of me a little bit more. And I appreciate the time, and we'll have to do it more often.
Dude, yeah, you've always got an open invite, and good luck trying to get 3, bro.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate it.
If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. And to listen to the full 3-hour podcast, search Gypsy Tales in your favorite podcast platform or click the link in the description below. Gypsy Gang.